Hello and good afternoon. It is, what is the date today? It is
It's the 17th?
December 18th, 2021. And I saw last night Spider-Man No Way Home, and a bunch of other people did too. And we're excited to break this down here on Super Mario Brothers Podcasting as we continue our MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe review podcast series that we started this year in 2021, starting with WandaVision and every other installment that's come since. We got a great panel to break this all down. We're going to introduce them. One of them is running a little bit late, so we will bring him in as soon as he's here. First, let's introduce my son, Eamon Mater, also known as Sam Jerka from the Let's Talk About Fighting Games podcast.
Which you gracefully plug, which is nice. Also, I love how it's called Super Mario Bros, but neither of your brothers are actually on here.
Well, you know, it's like a company, Jeff or Eamon, and it's like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you not know the name of your own son?
I was thinking about Jeff for a second, so I was slipping the tongue. But you know how it goes. Yes, so sometimes we have to divide and conquer. Jeff and I do. So, but welcome, Eamon. This is I don't know if you've been on this particular channel yet, but
I don't think so. No, but honestly, I'm really hyped to talk about No Way Home because it was really good.
Yeah, we also have
Mysterio.
Davan Skelhorn from Locutors of Trek, and also about the X-Men animated series rewatch podcast. Also, second cousins to myself, second cousin once removed to Eamon. How you doing, Davan Skelhorn?
Oh, doing good. I'm still hyped from seeing this movie at like 1 a.m. last night.
That you saw a late show, eh?
Yeah, I had to get the late show. Well, it was over.
Yeah, no, I was lucky, and Jaemeeel actually sold me tickets for an IMAX theater.
Sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, like full disclosure here, like, well, this is December 18th, 2021, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and pandemic restrictions are starting to tighten as the Omicron variant is tightening around the grip of the world.
Even though you were allowed to take off your mask in the theater because you need to eat snacks, so it's weird
for now, but that's going to change as of like Sunday.
I'm sure.
I think that that's part of the restrictions, that they can only go 50% capacity at the theater. And I think that there won't be any concessions at the theater, at least in Ontario. Davin's coming to us from Nova Scotia. I'm not sure exactly what Nova Scotia is implementing.
That's crazy, though, because the concessions is the only place theaters.
Yeah, the concessions is what sells the movies.
Yeah,
like that's literally the profits.
Yeah. I saw it in like a VIP theater, so it wasn't like a packed theater. It was like, you know, like they're a little bit, there's a like you're less crammed in. I had nobody on either side of me anyway, which was a bit surprising. But I thought that seeing this with an audience was terrific. It was like I'm glad that I did see it last night. And Eamon, where you were at the IMAX theater, which you said
it was there was the aisle seat, and so it was so nice having the big screen and all the dynamic sound, and it was so cool. The audience got so hyped every time something cool happened.
Yeah, it was like there was a lot of reactions. I was seeing with a lot of like you could tell big Marvel fans there when there was the big reveals and the big reactions.
And
like
one specific moment, obviously, which we'll get into after we do our spoiler warning.
Yeah, so we should do our spoiler warning here.
Right now.
We will be spoiling the hell out of this movie. If you have not seen this movie yet, please do. I would recommend you see this before we talk about it.
I got spoiled slightly on it. Please don't. It's just so good. Oh, hello, Mr. Late.
Sorry, it's the good old Peter Luck, Parker Luck at it. So
exactly. We got Jaemeeel Robinson with us.
That makes you Peter 4 today.
Peter 4? Well, I got something that you don't have. Pizza time.
Oh, yeah?
We were just giving our spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Well, we're all eating pizza.
Spoiler warning. And speaking of pizza time, should we talk about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire?
Well, yeah. So that we've done the spoilers. So if you we are jumping into this movie now. We are reacting to this movie now. And Jaemeeel, I believe you've seen this movie twice now, right?
I have, and
Lucky
also
duck.
slightly a third time.
Maybe
What?
even a third time. Okay, so we're in good company here to break this all down. And so yeah, like they didn't show it. They tried to keep it from us, but there are 3 Spider-Men in this movie.
Yeah.
But we all kind of knew that was happening.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
And in
It's
my
easy.
hand.
You can actually see them, like they're not directly shown, but you can see them very vaguely in the trailers during like the final fight shown in the trailer. That's cool.
You got your hero.
I want to put your hand behind it so that I
Oh yeah.
focus.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm bad with that.
But anyways, yeah, so everybody got like, so the way they're introduced is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty magical. I think that this movie of this Spider-Man trilogy, of this Homecoming trilogy, I think that this movie was my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Of this,
Top,
I think
top tier MCU, really.
Top tier MCU, kind of just like a real. I think one of these, like just much like the first Avengers movie, and even like I'd say Infinity War, Endgame as well. Maybe not so much.
You all right there, Dad? Like
I'm all right.
Are you guys?
Are you,
Hey?
Hey?
Hey,
Yo.
I'm here.
Okay. There's some connection issues up here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay.
can you feel me?
Do you feel me?
Can you smell me?
Can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Yeah, like to me, this movie will be in sort of in my mind for a long time. I think it will, like it's like in Captain America: Civil War, I would put in sort of that same group of things, like maybe like versus like maybe one of these more standalone movies like Ant-Man or whatever that is not necessarily as memorable for me. Even some of these other Spider-Man movies that preceded this,
I don't know about the rest of you guys, but during like the end of Phase 3, beginning of Phase 4, I just felt like I was burned out on the individual movies. So I didn't watch Ant-Man and the Wasp. I didn't watch Wonder Woman. I didn't watch Shang-Chi. I didn't watch any of that.
I started to feel burnout around Black Widow.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and Jaemeeel, what we were talking about to start off before you were able to come in was that I was really glad I got to see this with an audience. And as the mention of Black Widow came out, which was the movie we did like as of the films that came out this year. Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Eternals. It was the only one I didn't see in a theater. I don't know if it would have made it better for me, but I definitely think that it would have made my Spider-Man experience worse not seeing it with a cinema audience.
I disagree.
You disagree? Okay, go on.
I disagree because I was shushing the crowd a lot during the movie because. Like anything that would happen, he's like, woo, 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 yeah, woo. And he's like, I need to hear what's going on. Like there's dialogue, right? They were cheering the IMAX logo. IMAX logo.
That didn't happen for me.
Obnoxious crowds.
That didn't happen for me. So I don't know what was up with your audience.
There's a certain level of like excitement, right? But you have to understand, like, if something you cheer, and then if something happens, you kind of quiet down. But they would just like keep going on.
Yeah,
that's why I go to the late shows.
I felt like the audience at my show had the appropriate level of hype.
Yeah,
like,
and I saw it in a VIP theater.
I didn't hear the lawyer conversation until the second time around because there was too much cheers.
That sucks.
Because it was.
I have a question for you guys.
Or Mike Murdoch.
Yeah.
Which
in my theater,
when you think of it,
the Andrew reveal got nothing. Like
really?
No.
And then the Toby reveal got all this hype.
Oh, it shook our theater
during the Andrew reveal.
As soon as he turned around, and as soon as you saw the eyes of the mask, which are very distinct on his mask,
which I didn't notice at first. I thought that was just Holland Spider-Man just off in the distance because
I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It got a huge reaction in my theater. Yeah. So, Davan, you saw this at like 10 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah, 10:30 to like 1.
10:55, and then
geez.
second time at 7 o'clock.
7
and how did those
to
compare
9.
for you, Jaemeeel? Like seeing like a late audience and then like a more of a primetime audience.
So the 10:55 audience picked up on a lot of things that the 7 o'clock audience didn't. Right.
Like
so
An older crowd.
Okay. Almost anything Andrew did and any callbacks they were into. So the Andrew reveal, Andrew kind of joking with Electro when Electro was bad talking Andrew, and he's like, "Oh no, you're nothing." He's like, "Oh no," like little bits like that they picked up on. The MJ save was totally different between the two audiences. The first audience was like, it was like a heartfelt, "Oh my gosh," and like cheers. And then the second group was laughing at his facial expression because they didn't understand the context of that, what it meant to that Peter.
Really? I didn't know that wasn't the same for my. I went to a prime time. We had completely different reactions then.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So let's get into like lecture there. You got your different figures. Yeah. And like I am a huge
I got everybody, man.
fan of Spider-Man, and this by far is my favorite Spider-Man movie. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the whole movie and the whole plot and just what our thoughts are about it, and just jump in, guys. I think it sounds like we all like the movie, right, Jaemeeel? You're the only one I'm not 100% on where you stand on this movie. But
no, he watched it 3 times.
So, well, I kind of watched it twice because I already had tickets for it, not because of the quality of the movie bearing that. But and I'm very cautious to say if I love a movie, because you get the afterglow of coming out of theater and the tingles, and then upon later reflection, definitely. You have a different change of opinion.
A big movie I think that was The Force Awakens for certain.
Okay, I can understand that. Yeah,
good about
for me,
The Force
it was
Awakens
Endgame. I walked out of Endgame being like meh, and then the second time I watched it, I was like, man, I love that movie. But I don't know. Right. It was just so like.
I will say, I love this movie, and I love this movie not just because of the movie itself, but what it changes for the status quo, which is I feel like the next Spider-Man movie, I might actually get a Spider-Man movie, and I'll go into detail about that later on when we further reflect on the movie.
Got some great. I'm wearing the Spider-Man colors. I'm going with that.
I'm just wearing whatever the fuck.
You're the cool person. You're not wearing a shirt to the band that you're going to see. Yeah, I respect that.
I'm not the cool person. I'm the grown adult playing with toys.
Can I just say first off that the Green Goblin costume that they made for this movie looks amazing.
Yep.
Isn't it the same one he had in the original movie?
He broke the stupid helmet though.
You got rid of the helmet because that was he was a big green elf, guys.
But you know what's funny about this movie that I like all the things that we've talked about, these Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, like all the big points, talking points, they address all of them. Like everyone always said, why put a mask on Willem Dafoe? He looks like a goblin anyway. So Marvel just makes it Willem Dafoe's face. You know?
Yeah.
And like with Andrew, people always say how he's a good Spider-Man, but not a good Peter. And his movies have mostly Spider-Man. And he even says, he's like, I never really had time for Peter stuff. Like they address everything.
Yeah. Really and Electro, they addressed why Electro looks like Jamie Foxx instead of this just nerd.
He has the glow up now. In this universe, he has the glow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of different. Again, we'll get through all of it, guys. There's a lot to go through here. Okay, so this movie picks up right where the last one left off, the Far From Home, which it's like Mysterio has framed Peter Parker for murder, and he's revealed his identity. We got the J. Jonah Jameson right on screen, and he's seen his whole identity revealed, and then MJ, you know, the Zendaya character, she's right down in the middle of Times Square for this, and you know, she's getting harassed. Are you Spider-Man's girlfriend and whatever? So he swings down and pulls her up and
her.
You know, he's swinging through the city with her, and
he leaves her on like this metal bar, like 500 feet up, like an asshole, just to talk to Ned.
She's just like, dude.
He's like, he's like, are you okay? And she's like standing there, like just hanging on a bridge or whatever it is.
I will just first off say this was a breath of fresh air, because one of the things that was missing from Spider-Man mythos was he is not the beloved character that they made him out to be throughout the films, earlier films. From all of the Spider films that were previously there, there should be a genuine dislike amongst the populace. Not all consuming, not everyone hates Spider-Man, but
he's a menace,
right? But
Spider-Menace.
J. Jonah is able to be such a figurehead because there is such widespread support concerning his agenda, and that hasn't been expressed.
I definitely think that's nice to see. I don't think it's the majority of people hate him or anything, but there's
there needs to be a good healthy amount. Otherwise there would be no way J. Jonah would be able to be in business for that long with such an agenda.
Which, like you brought up, was well addressed in this movie and is somewhat addressed in the original Raimi movies, I think.
Well, one of the things, that's the thing with the Marvel, the classic comic book universe, you know, is Spider-Man is always sort of a controversial figure. Some superheroes are beloved, like the Avengers and like the Fantastic Four, while others, like the X-Men, are scorned and hated. And there was always
all the other superheroes hate Spider-Man.
The mutants are the Fantastic Four and X-Men are always hated because it's supposed to be that allegory for racism, right? Because
Fantastic Four are always loved in the comic books. Yeah, they're always like celebrities.
The Fantastic Four.
Oh, sorry, I meant X-Men.
Yeah, X-Men. Yes.
They've always been out.
Are like an allegory for a lot of things. For racism, but mutants are not liked or trusted or whatever. They're persecuted in the comic book universe, and that's obviously shown in like the X-Men films. But how they're going to deal with it in the MCU is still to be sort of to be seen. But yeah,
and we also talk about it on X-Rated, the X-Men review show.
Yes, which is on Thursday, talking about Captive Hearts and the Morlocks and all of that stuff.
Taking away from what's mine? That's my favorite
line. And then the whole thing where like they try to go home and there's all that media attention. There's also like the whole thing with like Aunt May breaking up with Happy. That's like, I don't know. I was like, why do we need this?
This was this weird fling that I saw in Spider-Man 2. It was like, I don't know. It didn't feel needed or right, really. Like,
it just felt like they were keeping him around, and that was the reason why he was still part of the
right, because he was really just Tony Stark's like sort of assistant
buddy.
Or whatever or guy, and then now that Tony Stark is out of his life, but Happy remains
Peter Parker.
But shouldn't he be hanging around his Tony's daughter and doing security for
and Pepper?
For Pepper and such? It just kind of makes no sense that they're fine by themselves grieving. I'm just gonna be here hanging out with the hot Ann and Peter.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a thing going here, and he's in this movie a lot. Jon Favreau, the Happy Hogan character,
more than he probably should have been.
Like it's always nice to see him, and I think his jokes work and whatever. But where he falls into the Spider family or whatever you want to call it is sort of like he's kind of like this grumpy uncle, I guess, or something. Because he's not. And that's happening right as he's coming home, and there's all of this like controversy and everything else. And then they get picked up by the Department of Damage Control, the DODC. There's like all that interrogation stuff to start off and they're being like, there's some really good funny stuff in there. Especially I think with Ned Leeds.
With Ned opening his mouth too much.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not supposed to talk to you, and he's like,
I'm the guy in the chair. He's like, I got a room full of guys in the chairs. We understand. It's like, yeah.
He's like, you
So
don't.
you found
know,
out about Spider-Man after MJ.
It's like, no. I'll do that beforehand. You know, I hacked the suit, and you know, I was helping him with.
Yeah, he's like, so you're his greatest accomplice then. He's like, oh no, yeah. I especially liked Aunt May. In through all of these scenes, I thought she's like, I want my lawyer, and you can't do this. And then, I don't know if like the Department of Damage Control, if they follow due process.
Is this a thing in the comics? The
Damage Control is
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
They were funny comics actually. That first round of Damage Control just in the 80s.
So a lot of jurisdiction though. Because they were able to know that Fury was off world.
Right.
Which isn't something that Rent-A-Cops.
Sorry, I haven't watched Spider-Man 2, but why was he off the planet?
Because he's dealing with Sword.
Okay.
And the Skrulls were filling in for him.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's who Peter talks to in Spider-Man 2?
Yeah. It was never Fury.
Okay.
It was two Skrulls who were posing as Maria Hill and
Nick Fury.
Nick Fury. So they were kind of quote unquote running Shield-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, they're dealing with the space. The real Nick Fury's off dealing with some space stuff that's still to be sort of revealed exactly what's going on with him.
Secret Invasion show will get into that.
And Marvels, I assume.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was interesting, but they eventually all get dropped. And then they're like, we need a lawyer, and then the reveal of Matt Murdock, who is the Netflix series Daredevil, as played by Charlie Cox, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He just shows up here. He's in the living room of their apartment, and my theater went crazy for this.
I thought that was Affleck. Affleck's
no,
Daredevil.
It was Charlie Cox.
No. Okay,
it was Charlie Cox.
The good Daredevil.
Yeah.
I will defend Affleck Daredevil to my dying day.
He's actually
that's an interesting position to take.
It's probably the best part of that.
That movie is a mess, but I haven't watched a lot of the Netflix Daredevil. I've seen the hallway scene a few times. It's great, and I think that
it's a great show.
It's a great show.
Yeah, and that
all the way.
What I understand that and those TV shows, those are canon to the MCU.
No.
Well, they haven't been. They've been in sort of this purgatory that would they become part of canon or would they not be? Because they were kind of developed separately, and some of the stuff with the Defenders and a few of the series, even Iron Fist and Luke Cage, were not as well received, right? So I think that
I like Luke Cage quite a bit.
Luke Cage was well received for season 1. Season 2, not so much. Iron Fist season 1, definitely not. Iron Fist season 2 was received better. Punisher, for whatever reason, was received well.
I thought it was a great show.
I thought it was a pain to watch. I didn't watch season 2.
Wow.
And I watch everything. And I couldn't do season 2.
Punisher is probably my third favorite. I like Jessica Jones and Daredevil better.
Jessica Jones season 2 was pretty rough.
It was a mess. Yeah. As soon as they start putting in family member characters, they're out of ideas.
Yeah.
Her mother's here and she's evil.
There's obviously a lot of people who love those shows, those Netflix shows, and I think where they fit into the MCU has been sort of dubious. And then, I don't want to spoil Hawkeye if you haven't seen Hawkeye, anybody, but there was 2 reveals this week that tie this one in this movie, and there was something that happened in Hawkeye, another Netflix character that shows up there. That was pretty big, and so in the same week, so they're saying yes, we are continuing. Those characters do matter, and I think that they're going to.
No, they're different versions.
Which I'm glad considering Luke Cage, because I've always liked Luke Cage as a character in the comics.
So
Luke Cage is cool.
Dave, David is right. As of right now, all we know is that there is a Daredevil. There is the character revealed on Hawkeye. We don't know if it's the same one. It could be a variant, right?
But why would it need to be?
Because they don't want to be tied to those old stories.
Before the multiverse stuff, so there's no excuse of he's from the Netflix universe, right?
Well,
this movie and Loki has proven that they can just say any character they want. This is the version in this prime or this.
Sure, they could. I know that they could. I just
they're
going to
start doing that quite a bit.
I don't know why they need to, because what in those Netflix shows would be problematic to say is
for Daredevil. Everything it goes through his full everything all his big character moments were already done in that show. He had 3 great seasons. Well, I wouldn't want to be tied to it myself because he's supposed to be dead now or something.
Here's the important thing that can be taken away from it, Dave. The canon there, and I know you're a stickler about canon, is as important as it is referenced in the MCU. So they can have all of his enemies that did not die or pass away show up, and it'll be perfectly fine. Yep. Everything that made him who he is, perfectly canon. We don't need to re-reference it. The cast is probably all coming back.
The misses and the failures.
Right? Yeah, all the casts probably come back, right? But at the same time, Foggy will probably come back.
Yeah, maybe.
But it will be the John.
I just thought he was the weakest link. On
Foggy.
No, I just feel like at this point, let's say his enemies know his secret identity, and they could just move from there. We don't know. The 5-year gap has created a lot of vagueness that they can explain whatever differences that have occurred to whatever character they want to. Luke Cage was the king of New York 5+ years ago, right? He might not be now, right? Mm-hmm. He could have been blipped away and he's no longer in power. He's just a street dude again, right?
Yeah.
And they could just reference, hey, you used to be a big deal. We know the context, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to want to play Kingpin as a character that everyone doesn't know is a criminal, right? They're going to want to start him fresh and he's just going to be this influential New Yorker again. And you can't do that if you tie it to all that Daredevil stuff because everyone knows he's
okay. Well, we're going to see how this plays out. They might be variants, they may not be. But Charlie Cox is the Daredevil of the MCU. That is now established, and he is a lawyer, and he was Peter's lawyer in this one.
A very good lawyer.
I like how they throw the brick through the window. And it says, we believe Mysterio, but believe is spelled wrong.
It is?
It's spelled BLEIVE, right? Or so it's.
Want me to check?
Alive.
I feel like the Mysterio believers are like the anti-vaxxers.
Yeah, I think
they're like an analogy for them.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this too.
Spelled it wrong.
I feel like the first 20-ish minutes of this movie are supposed to be an allegory for cancel culture. The way that Mysterio just kind of says, hey, he did this, but they have no proof for it. And so Peter gets a lot of shit.
And isn't Happy Hogan also under criminal investigation for Stark Industry giving tech out and all these other things?
Which he's going to need a really good reference to.
She-Hulk.
Oh, yes and no.
She-Hulk's going to be his really good lawyer.
It's also
She-Hulk is a lawyer. I always forget that.
Yeah,
it's also a setup for
Daredevil.
It's also a setup for Armor Wars as well, because you have Stark tech stolen, and that tech will be used by other organizations, probably sold on the black market to various companies.
It up.
Yep.
And Riri Williams, maybe they'll probably introduce.
Well, she's going to be in Black Panther too.
Oh, Riri is okay.
Yeah. And the whole thing about they're not getting into all this stigma on them about Spider-Man and everything else. They're not just Peter, but also MJ and Ned. They try to get into college, MIT. They talk about everything there. They can't get in. And there's even at school, at high school, there's that whole scene where he tries to go to school and they're bombarded with the celebrities and the three the teachers.
The three teachers,
arguing with each other.
The coach who hates his guts. He's like, I believe Mysterio, and you suck. But the
you're a killer. You're a killer.
They're like, hey, do you want to crawl around on the ceiling and do things? We know you can do that. And
it was what is it? What's it in JB Smooth's character? He from the last one was blaming witches for what was happening to the world, which is hilarious because of what we know of Westview.
And
I love that
then
line too. As well as a man of science,
which is, and then the third one from I forget his name from Party Downs and from the
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley, yes. He lost his wife.
He's crazy.
She left him and blamed the blip for the reason why she left him. Like that was her. She just disappeared. It's like, oh, she was blipped. It's like, no, she just left him for another man.
It's just like, well, I had a funeral for her and everything, but it wasn't real. I mean, well, the funeral was real because I thought she was dead. No, it's like super depressing stuff.
They do a lot of this stuff where it's like not really. You would have to dig deeper to get that in world lore, and that's one thing that this director and these writers have done throughout these 3 movies. The lore is there if you want to take the time to look into it,
but it's not necessary.
Correct, absolutely,
and it's the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah.
Another reference I noticed is that at one point Peter wears his "I survived my trip to New York" shirt from Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
When Tony takes the suit from him.
He's also Find X, a Pythagorean theorem T-shirt he wore later on when he was in Happy Hogan's loft as well later on.
Good eye for T-shirts, fellas.
Mm-hmm.
It's my uniform, Star Trek uniform for Dave.
Right.
Yes, you it's all about the canon and the uniforms. Okay, and this whole thing, I really liked Zendaya in this movie. I thought as MJ, I thought that her chemistry with Tom Holland was really strong, and Ned Leeds and the tree, like when they're about to kiss there on the roof, and then he shows up. He's like, "Hey, what are we doing? Hey, well, just get some peace and quiet." He's completely oblivious that he kind of interrupted the moment, but as a trio, maybe even somewhat comparable to Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, and James Franco from the first trilogy. Like they have sort of a similar, little bit, but less so. Like no
kind
romance
of.
between Ned and
well, they bring that up with Ned too. They're like, "But I won't betray you.
I won't betray you and become a supervillain." That was one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. Zendaya is great in this movie. I really thought that them as like the Spider team or whatever you want to call it was working well. Yeah, it was really, really nice, and just how this is having all this negative publicity and how bad Spider-Man and Peter Parker feels here, for the whole situation that this has come upon them. It's there's that whole scene like the donut shop where MJ works, and they open all their final letters and
they can't because of their connection to Peter.
Yeah, due to the recent controversies or whatever it says in the letter,
which makes absolute sense.
If you're not getting into the school, it's always just a letter. It's not, but if you get in, you get like a big package. That's how you know. So they should already know.
I wouldn't know.
At least that's how it used to be. And so this is where.
Wait, does that package include a sweater to MIT that that Flash got, or did Flash so desperately order one?
Well, Ned also wears one at the end of the movie too, right?
But he was already going to the school,
right?
Yeah.
Flash wasn't, Well,
Flash comes in, and Flash is an interesting of this original kind of group of kids, right? Because we see Betty Brant and whoever, but I think Flash is sort of the fourth wheel here in this group but he always hated Peter but loved Spider-Man, and now that he has to reconcile it, they don't spend a lot of time in the movie, but he's always there kind of for a good joke, and he comes in no. Sleep till Boston. As they're all dejected that they didn't get into the school.
Another thing I noticed was about Flash was that his book was called Flashpoint, which I think might be a jab at DC.
Great.
Yeah,
it was great.
That was funny. And just the whole thing about I want to be Spider-Man's best friend, but he always hated Peter Parker.
Right.
Just seeing him try to work it out was
is that what that's supposed to be? Is a jab at DC, the Flashpoint thing, or
I don't think it's a jab at them.
I think it's just a good reference, kind of a laughing, joking moment kind of thing.
DC's got their Flash, we got our Flash. Flash Thompson,
who has comic book blonde hair now, like in the comics.
Yeah, he made it all.
Well, he dyed his hair in this movie, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yeah, he had a different look going on here.
I
And
have a
like the
theory about
Halloween
Flash
directions,
for later.
the
in
Halloween
the podcast.
decorations are what kind of inspire Peter to go see Doctor Strange, because he's looking up at one of the things that, like, I guess it's a vampire or it's like or something, right?
It's a witch and a duck, a witch duck.
A witch duck,
which I remember thinking was stupid. I was like, "This is really what gets him to go see Doctor Strange."
Yeah. It's just like he's like, I don't know what to. He's just looking, pondering up, and goes, "Oh yeah, I know a magician, a wizard."
But okay, my first, like, that was the best option with all the amount of important people that he has access to. He couldn't like call up, like hey, through connections, through Happy, get in contact with a Wakanda and have Wakanda like vouch for him. Like you have the leader of a powerful country that you could basically say, "Hey, hook him up."
You think that there would be
Wakanda ain't
like
gonna
that,
vouch for Spider-Man.
You know, yeah, like because they have to leave their apartment after the brick gets thrown through the window or whatever, and so they go to like Happy's like, I don't know, safe house or bachelor pad or something, and it doesn't even have enough rooms for him, Peter, and Aunt May. Right?
But it has a Donkey Kong machine, right?
It has
Donkey
a Donkey Kong
Jr.
machine
for some reason.
yeah. But it's somewhere else they can go that's sort of like not as public and no one knows about it. Yeah, it's kind of, he knows lots of superheroes, but in particular he knows Doctor Strange. They had set that all up, that they were Infinity War together and all that, and they show up at the Sanctum Sanctorum. He doesn't even have to knock; it just opens, and we see the blizzard here. A couple of interesting things here is like they changed quite a few things about what we saw in the trailers and versus what we end up hearing in the finished movie.
I know.
Like the dialogue between Wong and Doctor Strange is different. In particular, we also find out that Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme. He was
because
technically,
Stephen Strange got blipped,
which makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense. I thought Wong was blipped as well, but I guess he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
No, because I remember when they were doing the promotional stuff for Endgame, and they were saying like "Avenge the Fallen," and Wong's photo was one of the black and white photos they would show, like of all the people blipped out. But I think that's not a big deal. That's just marketing. That's nothing contradicting on screen stuff. No. And I think it's gonna be an interesting dynamic to see how Wong and Stephen Strange continue in their franchise with that power shift being like flipped on its head. But it makes more sense that we saw Wong and Shang-Chi in the Legend of the Ten Rings and why he was kind of being more active as the Sorcerer Supreme and kind of like recruiting Shang and Katie. And
wait, is that why it's all snowy inside the Sanctum Sanctorum, or?
No, they left one of the portals. Yeah. They didn't seal it shut properly because Steven has been lacking in his duties as an assistant, and a blizzard rolled through the entire sanctum.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good job, Steven.
Yeah.
If it's anything like the comics, the Sanctum Sanctorum is crazy. There's like a million doors, and everyone leads to like some crazy place.
Right.
And they even shot an episode of The Equalizer there in the 80s.
Apparently. Which is, I think, a Disney property.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or it's a Sony property. I don't know which one it is, but
one thing I want to point out is I love the character dynamic between Strange and Peter here. The way their relationship changes. They go from friends to enemies to being pursued to someone who really respect each other.
I don't even know if they're ever fully enemies, but they're definitely at odds for a good part of this movie.
Yeah.
When they have a philosophical disagreement about how to handle the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I just fought Doctor Strange and I won
with math.
Yeah, with
so, great point, Eamon, about it, because going back to what I was originally talking about in terms of how Spider-Man has been presented in the MCU, he has been too well liked among other heroes. Spider-Man is one that he's of a particular taste, and usually is controversial. Is usually at odds with a lot of characters, and that's because of many aspects. One, his humor. Two, his sensibilities in terms of how he approaches his actions, and three,
Parker Luck
as well, where situations just put him at odds with different characters, right? Always the case. So to see this kind of play out like that, where it's not like they're enemies per se, but they have two different distinct philosophical perspectives, and it comes to quote unquote blows. Not really fists, but blows.
Magic versus webs.
Yeah, I did love the pushing his body into the astral plane, his soul, and then his instincts automatically take over where he can't get the box.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
I was wondering what happened there.
Me
I
too.
was kind of confused by it, but okay, that makes more sense.
That was his
like,
spider sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, okay, like the thing about this, like that Stephen Strange is so annoyed with Spider-Man and Peter Parker through all this. He's like, well,
Everybody
my
is
friends,
though.
everyone is, but like
That's
Stephen
the
Strange,
character.
come
That's
on,
why they're
like,
doing it
you're
so
not
well.
perfect either, Stephen Strange. Because he's
Well,
like, okay,
it's
tell me
like-
what happened. Okay, and like,
Strange gets mad at him for wishing for the spell when he didn't go to ask for another acceptance into MIT. And I can speak on this as someone who's going into college. I didn't know that was possible.
Well, you could always
Yeah.
like try to make your case. They like
Yeah.
gumption sometimes.
they're
But
like
Go
somebody
in
who's
there
gonna
like,
try to
here's
make
why
an
I'm
argument.
a bold person you want to get behind.
yeah.
You
But
really
it's-
want to be here.
It's personalities as well. Steven, as a person who went through the collegiate system, but knowing how much of a perfectionist he is, he wouldn't take no for an answer in that regard. His character. Look,
Right.
he
Whereas-
was even asked to train, and he begged. He literally begged to get in. He waited outside the doors until someone let him in. So
Yes.
Peter gets a letter and says, well, gotta go to the DEF CON 5 to kind of solve this issue, right?
Right. Okay, that makes more sense.
Would be an annoyance to him.
Right. But Stephen
Uh,
Strange could have asked a few more questions in advance. They could have talked about the parameters of what this spell was going to do. They could have had, if they even had talked it through for 20 minutes, that things would not have happened in this movie like they did.
No.
But
The
they
other thing
don't.
too is that Wong warned Steven of the perils of performing this spell. So it's like when Zendaya points out that Stephen Strange is kind of at fault for this, it was like, yeah, he really is.
I think they're equally at fault. It was, and like Wong even is kind of complicit in it too, because he's like, okay, you can do it, Steven, but
Don't get
mess
me
it up."
involved.
Yeah,
Remember the
don't
party
get
in
involved.
Hermitage? No.
Yeah, he kind of washes
see?
his hands of it.
Well,
Well,
I think Steven wanted to perform the spell more than anything because he, as a person who's supposed to be performing this spell, he should have asked if there was any parameters involved, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's my
So-
point.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah,
doctor,
and he
he
should
would
have
not have performed a surgery.
Peter on the spell better.
Like,
So the-
like he was a surgeon, Stephen Strange, right? He's a guy who would have to prepare for surgeries. And this is kind of like a surgery on the world. You're trying to erase a specific fact from history, like from people's minds.
Right.
So I think you just want to think it through and be prepared. So this is where I'm like, not very methodical of you, Stephen, but whatever. You're trying to help out your sort of friend, and like,
Seeing how the spell works, you're telling me you're going to perform this spell in this dark basement beneath the sanctorium with a person you're after the spell not going to recognize or know who he is.
he's
The
like, I won't know
Undercroft.
it either. Yeah. He was like, it's going to include me.
Well, actually, sorry, I disagree. He would not know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but he would know Spider-Man. So I guess,
Mhm.
but would he
Yeah.
remember that he did the spell?
It's the connection that everyone forgets. People,
Right,
you
and
can still know
I don't
Spider-Man
think he
and
would have
even
because they
Parker.
brought
You
up with
just don't know
Wong
who he is.
earlier. It was like, do you remember that Christmas party we went to? No. Yeah, that's the point.
Like Happy does
Yeah,
that
yeah.
at the end. Like when they're like at the end there, and he's talking to Peter, and he's just like, "How did you know her?" And he's just like, "Through Spider-Man." He doesn't question that. He's like, some people just know Spider-Man and maybe know Peter Parker as well. I guess.
Sorry, can you repeat
Well,
that?
yeah, like what their memories are and what they do and don't remember, like, especially like Ned and MJ at the end here, is still, I think, to be determined from their past, because like they would remember being.
I think the
blipped.
main idea, if I'm here even, I think the main idea is that it's a strong spell, but eventually it could be broken if it will just take Peter some time to get through to Ned and MJ.
Well,
Yeah,
kind of jumping forward, there's aspects of the spell that we need to either debate or have it revealed to us. So the Black Dahlia necklace, MJ still has at the end of the movie. So who gave it to her? Was it not Peter, because she doesn't remember or have a connection to Peter? Was it Spider-Man that gave it to her? And maybe we find out that she's really into Spider-Man, right? And
or it's just a gap and she just doesn't remember. And maybe
and that kind of
she's like, why don't I remember?
And then she starts researching how it.
That's what I figured it would be too. Like Peter pointed out the scar on her head, and I think that was starting to turn some gears in her head, because it probably made her think like, when did I get this? Because that happened during the final battle of the movie.
Yeah,
and that makes a lot of sense too, because we haven't.
And the spell like
thing
changes
had no
like
point.
video recordings. It changes J. Jonah Jameson's like physical like media as well. Okay,
I mean, it's magic, so I believe it, but
it's magic, true. Yeah, and so like the whole like the casting of the spell is it's cool, and like how he's just like, oh, and not Happy, and not Aunt May, and not these people, right? It's like okay, yeah, like we talked about, but he's just like, come on, kid, whatever, and he's like, okay, your girlfriend.
Again, we talked about how if he just briefed him on this, anyways.
Yeah, and he's like, and then this is where he tells him like, you didn't even try to like get back in or try to argue the point or whatever. He's like, oh, you can do that?
Kicks him out.
Great thing. And this is where he calls Flash, right? And he's like, hey, Flash,
to
like,
tell him where the guidance counselor is,
like the MIT admissions person or something. You know, and he's like, he agrees to help him if he'll swing him to school. For they negotiate this to 2 weeks, I think. Because
it was
a week.
It was a week, and then he's like,
doesn't give.
Never happened.
So he the deal breaker was to make it was, I'll say that you're my best friend, and then he agrees.
Yeah, and he shows him and sends him a picture. So, you know, Flash Thompson's kind of an asshole, but at least he's a man of his word. Yeah,
true.
At least
well, he's going to be a superhero soon. My theory is that little
I
slice
do
of symbiote that gets left there is going to end up on him.
Yeah, and like the whole thing where he's like going out to find her and whatever, and this is kind of where this is where like Dr. Octopus
everything happens.
Shows up, and there's like, what's going on and how is this going? And like this whole scene here where he's like, hello, Peter, and he's like, hey, excuse me, do I know you?
He was so good in this, which is great because he's my favorite villain.
Alfred Molina.
He was great in it. Yeah, Doc Ock's my favorite villain.
Oh yeah, no, Alfred Molina was amazing.
Yeah, he's got a great like the new CGI version of Dr. Octopus and what they can do with that in terms of like fighting Spider-Man and doing this on screen compared to Spider-Man 2, which was
I think the puppets.
Go ahead, Eamon.
We lost him.
I think he froze.
Okay.
He'll be back though, but he was probably talking about the puppets. Arms were great in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
they were great. They were great, but like this was even better, you know, because of how fast it can be. Like I think you could ideally even have both going on. You know, for certain types of what the scene calls for, but for like the fighting, it's just way handier to kind of see this going on. I thought that
Did you guys see the physical manifestation of Jaemeel's soul leave his body when I said the word symbiote? I saw it.
We'll talk about that later on.
We'll talk about Venom at the end.
You can't fool me, Jaemeeel.
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole thing where he's about to like kill him there, and then but the suit protects him, and the nanites come over into the tentacles.
And he uses
and then
Bluetooth.
He realizes this is not the face of the Peter Parker he knows. He goes,
because he knows Sam Raimi, or not Sam Raimi,
Tobey Maguire. Yeah.
Tobey Maguire. Thank you.
He's just like, I'm so confused right now. And like, but I liked how like his control of the nanites was able to like take over control of the tentacles, and he was able to like subdue Doc Ock like this. He's like,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
And the whole thing where he's like, you don't listen to him, you listen to me, because he's always having like those conversations with the 4 tentacles and their individual personalities, I guess.
Even though the tentacles are controlling his mind, because that's the point of the chip and everything.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
that's his like what he that's his affliction, right? And the thing he needs to be cured of, which is a big theme of this movie.
Very
You know, and
Spider-Man.
then I don't know how soon after, but like I like I like how that woman, she is like, hey, like the MIT lady, like she comes up to Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, and she's like, that was not okay. But she kind of says that everything's gonna be okay, that she's gonna talk to the admissions board and about
Because
her
Peter
about him and a friend.
saved her life.
Yeah, so that seemingly has been like dealt with, right? Like in the sense that
Well, she said to keep your nose clean.
keep your nose clean, but like that problem maybe for the moment can be backburnered because now there's more problems, namely this big green elf that shows up because you know, and Willem Dafoe in this movie was really
Honestly,
really good.
I don't think this costume is as stupid as you guys say it is.
I don't like it.
We disagree.
I don't like it, but knowing what I could have gone, which was a ladder one, I so want the ladder one so much more.
Oh, the latter one's so much better, but yeah.
No, it's worse. The second one is worse.
What?
There's
The one
the
he wears
Dane
later in the
DeHaan one from Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, like we don't talk about that.
No, sorry, you're talking about Dane DeHaan. Yeah, no. I'm definitely glad we got this.
I thought you were going to talk about New Goblin.
Yeah, no.
New Goblin.
Guys are all like, that doesn't even exist. Get the hell out of here.
Kind of sad we didn't get to see goddamn James Franco.
Well, he's
he's kind of canceled right now.
Yeah, he's
he's
canceled.
talking about cancel culture.
Why?
Because he's like a sexual predator or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, not necessarily.
It's really bad. Like it's not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't actually want Dane DeHaan in this movie, but it would have been cute if Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn from different universes met up and they thought they like. I don't actually want to see that, but it would have been cute.
He'd be like, you know what? I like you better than James Franco. You can be my son.
So good. It's like, where was James Franco? He was at a pie shop and he was just stuck there for the entire movie.
Right. Well, this is where like Stephen Strange like pulls Doc Ock and Spider-Man into like into the sanctorum.
What's his name that plays Goblin?
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is probably my favorite part of this movie.
He's amongst my favorite parts too.
Mine's probably Alfred Molina, and strangely enough, Andrew Garfield. And he was my least favorite Spider-Man, but he was really good.
He's great in this movie. He was better than he was in his own movies.
Way better.
I think that is more of he kind of got that series taken from him, as opposed to like Toby had 3 movies and then it just kind of felt like an end due to a lot of the stuff. There was a gap between like Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Right?
There was supposed to be, and they were in pre-production for it. Yeah. But at the very least, like it seemed like an end for him, and he had like other movies that were on the come up.
Amazing Spider-Man 2, which literally ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, like that series was taken from him.
Right, because Amazing Spider-Man 2 was bad, and so it got canceled basically.
It was bad. It still made money, not as much as it could have.
Spider-Man,
but and then like Sony had that whole upheaval with the letter, the email gate and hacks, and that kind of just they had to do a lot of changes over it, and that's when Feige reached out to Sony, right? And for that's what happened. So like, sorry.
For Civil War?
Yeah, like due to like the Sony issues.
I can save you. He's like, I can.
Yeah, he reached out to Sony. It wasn't like Sony made that decision. It was Feige reached out to Sony, see if they could make a deal. But the way the deal was working was, we have to get a new Spider-Man. We can't just use Andrew Garfield,
which I think makes sense.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to necessarily be tied to that role. He was, and
so good in this movie.
Well, honestly, the thing that's so much about Amazing Spider-Man 2 is that it ends on a cliffhanger, right? With the Rhino. And it's like...
Is that a cliffhanger?
He wins. Like,
he's going to win. He's Spider-Man. He's the Rhino.
Yeah. Like, I fought a guy in a Rhino suit.
I understand what you're saying, because the movie did end on a cliffhanger in the sense of we don't know what's happening with Peter in terms of his life because Gwen is gone. They have so much stuff about the Sinister Six floating in the air, right? You have... All the stuff about his parents that are left unresolved, that they pushed the needle a little bit further. So we're like, is that going to be resolved next? There was so much things that were like, okay, the next one is going to be going to reveal a lot of what's happening, and it never happened. It just felt unresolved. And it's not like Andrew wasn't willing to play Spider-Man. He was told he wasn't Spider-Man anymore.
Yeah, because I just think that second movie was not well received, and they were like, we got to reboot this again or something, or we got to do something. And
which I think is a shame, because if they under proper direction, I think that the movies could have worked, because I really do like
one at a time.
You can see as this goes on, Dave is just getting like, he's like, that's it, one at a time, please.
We wait for the person to stop speaking before we start speaking. That's just so we can go from there. Or we put
it's legs, Dave. It's legs.
Yeah, it's
lagging.
Too.
Lagging is real.
Literally, everybody was cutting out like half the time, so I'm sorry, but I can't tell when people are talking.
My old friend Frostelino da Costa. Dave dropping the dad talk.
Yep.
That's right, Marcel. Yeah.
Dave's like, I'll have you know I'm the older cousin. You shall listen to me.
I am. I'm what, like a year older than you?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Actually, but Jaemeeel is a year older than me. So we are there.
Neil's busy with pizza. Or Jameel's busy with pizza.
Yeah. All right. But like the whole thing where like they're down in the dungeon for the first time, they throw Doc Ock in the cell. Doctor Strange just caught the lizard. He's like, I found this thing crawling around, and they're squeaking through, and Doctor Strange is yelling at Peter that he needs his help to solve the mess that they've now created. I like that, just like he's explained the multiverse. It's a concept we know frighteningly little of. And you know, I liked when he was with Alfred Molina, and he goes, "Is that Peter? Do you know Spider-Man?
Do you know Peter Parker?
Do you know Peter Parker? Yes. Is that him? No. Okay." He's like, "See."
That was such a Nick Fury line.
Marcel digged the movie, he says, by the way.
Yes. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just fun. I'm glad that Electro got a redesign in this movie, because
much needed.
It's really good.
Yeah, like, and the whole thing where they gave, I think, like, Doctor Strange gives Spider-Man sort of like a new suit in this movie, right? Like, he gives him like this technology, like this magic spell, so he's able to like shoot webs at these, I guess, these interdimensional interlopers. They're coming over, right? Like we get like this black suit with the gold.
The black suit isn't technically a new suit. It's his old suit, like inside out.
Oh,
because he couldn't clean it,
right?
So it looked messy. So he put it on the inside out. It still had the hole, from the tentacles,
right? From when Doctor Strange.
So that's where he put his phone. He put his phone there, and he duct taped it to his chest. Right.
Yeah. Right.
I will say that I think this design looks really cool for him.
Yeah.
It's very black suit Spider-Man, but it looks really nice.
It's kind of like a cross between the black suit Spider-Man and also the his web armor from Web of Spider-Man 100.
Yeah, it's just like the stealth armor.
It's like the magic suit, because it's got all like these like different symbols written on it and different things. It's like it's real different.
It's just the electric. It's the circuits on the inside out.
It's just a circuitry.
And he has the armband, which is what he was given by Doctor Strange to transport people into the sanctum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole scene where he goes out to the hydro field here with the hydro towers, and this is where he meets up with Electro and Sandman. They're both there. And so so Jamie Foxx in this movie I thought was really good. I thought this was the version of this character I wish we had gotten in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 when that film came out, but back then it was a very different
it's Sony.
movie.
It was Sony.
It was he was playing Milton with powers from Office Space.
Yeah, it was.
I have often found his acting to be quite weak in things, but he was great in this.
It depends on the movie and the director. Like Michael Mann can get a lot out of him.
I hear he was good as Ray Charles.
Yeah, the Collateral Ray Charles year was pretty good. But yeah, it's a plight that a lot of actors, they're not necessarily great actors. They're actors who can be taken to another level based upon who the director and writer is. And he is a perfect example in it. Like, if he was in a Farley's Brothers movie, he would be pretty hilarious, but not a dramatic actor.
Right. I will say that Sandman was like pushed to be more antagonistic, I feel like, in this movie than he was in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
I guess I hate Sandman. I gotta tell you guys, like, this was the character this was the villain they brought in for this that I was least impressed with, and that includes the Lizard.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay, I put my hand up. So those two characters were put on the back burner for two reasons, I believe. One, because they're such CG heavy characters that you do not want to spend countless budget on just having them in scenes. So they were purposely put on the sidelines. Especially Lizard.
Yeah, especially.
Sorry.
Who can talk in this movie, by the way?
Yeah, they're the two least known actors too, Rice fans and the guy from Wings.
The guy from Wings. The Lizard's agenda isn't something that's easily relatable to be constantly brought up in terms of discussions with everyone in the same room.
Right.
And
I can by turning me into a lizard. Yes.
Yes. The Sandman, on the other hand, he isn't necessarily a villain. He just wants to go home. Mm-hmm. Right. And they kept it very one note with him, and they just kept him out of ways. Like, he says is like, I want to go home, I want to see my daughter. That's it. And they kept it that way. And I'm glad they didn't try to create some kind of new tension that didn't need to be there. He wasn't the focus. The three main focus were the three characters, and that's what they kept it to.
Yeah, like Doc Ock and Electro and Green Goblin are like definitely more forefront, and then those two secondary. I agree, but I didn't like Spider-Man 3 that much. I didn't like Sandman in that movie either, and I didn't like him anymore in this movie. Really, like even the Lizard, I thought I liked more in this movie. Jaemeeel?
Spider-Man 3, aka the second best Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Behind which one?
Spider-Man 1.
Okay.
You think it's better than Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3?
Which is something that I knew was going to come up, and something that I was going to say later on after we discuss the plot, because I know Dave is trying to get us through this movie so we can start analyzing it. So it's Dave's decision. Do you want me to bring this up now, or do you want us to come back to it later on?
I have my thing. Jaemeeel and I can debate.
Go for it.
Okay. So Spider-Man 2 to me is ruined. Amazing performance by Alfred Molina, and it devolves into where Peter Parker solves all of his issues practically by revealing his secret identity throughout the film. Almost any single bit of tension that occurs is solved by him revealing himself. So MJ and him are having constant problems, and his big solve in terms of her understanding him is him revealing his secret identity. Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, who is on a rampage and constantly swinging back between personalities, he's able to snap out of it. Why? Because he's jolted into the revelation of Peter Parker's secret identity. He is constantly put at odds because his identity exists, and it's a strong part about Spider-Man in general. And we have an entire scene where an entire train full of people are made aware of his secret identity, and we're supposed to sweep it under the rug because they won't tell. They just won't tell.
Yeah, right? Those movies weren't super concerned with portraying Spider-Man properly. Like, they even did the biological web shooters, and the identity thing was something that they've taken care of with the new Spider-Man thing, with the fact that he has a nano suit and he just pops it off, because they won't want to cover the actors' faces. So in those Raimi movies, it's very clunky, where you can tell they're coming up with all these plot devices to make it so you can see Tobey Maguire. Like they even whenever he fights, his mask always gets ripped.
Oh
too.
yeah, they're always
Now
finding a
I can
way to
emote,
like smash
you
it off of him. Like that's one of the
But
great things about the Tom Holland version is that his eyes move and are more expressive
Yeah.
than like the others, which are just Oakley
What?
lenses.
I
and they're not as afraid.
having
to do it.
Spider-Man's face mask ripped off in places is fine because it doesn't necessarily truly reveal his secret identity as
And it
opposed
makes
to his
sense.
mask being off.
And it
He's
makes
fighting.
sense.
He's wearing a cloth suit, and we're probably going to see a lot of that more often now with the lack of nano suit. But at the same time, Spider-Man 2 has a lot of the aspects of Spider-Man 3, but in Spider-Man 2 is disregarded. In Spider-Man 3, it's considered as being hokey or lame. The emo dance sequence in Spider-Man 3 is something that is constantly brought up as being so super campy, but it seems that people completely forget the raindrop scene in Spider-Man 2, which is of the exact same tone of Spider-Man 3 and also aspects of Spider-Man 1. Right, so it's just because people don't like Spider-Man
Honestly,
3 because of aspects of Spider-Man 3 that Spider-Man
And
3 is,
Venom.
to me is a stronger narrative movie.
Eamon?
Honestly, I never have a problem with the Raimi Spider-Man's being more campy because it's Sam Raimi. He's the motherfucker who directed goddamn Army of Darkness.
He's
So
the
if
camp
you don't
guy.
expect it to be corny, you know, you kind of get what you paid for.
I think it's perfectly fine. That's the tone of his films. He's pretty consistent of it. Don't all of a sudden complain about the tone being campy in the third one when you're disregarding
First
the
one's
first
very
two.
campy.
It's all super campy.
All of them.
Go
are
I
Robert!
think the
super
only
campy.
3 good
All
Spider-Man
of them are
movies
super
are the
campy.
Marvel ones. Like the other 5
Yeah, the first two
can be
movies,
okay
because
movies, but they don't get Spider-Man right.
Yeah, I feel like that in the original Tobey Maguire trilogy, I think that the best part of the first two movies are Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina in particular, and the villains really shine. And in the third, there's no real good villain. You got Sandman and you got Venom, which I don't think
That
works.
70s Venom?
and you also have James
Yes,
Franco.
So okay, here's where I can understand people disregarding Spider-Man 3. I thought that Thomas Hayden Church was excellent as Sandman.
Yeah.
He used James Brown in the first one. So Thomas Hayden Church, I think, is a classic Spider-Man villain in the sense that he's not necessarily a villain, right? He is someone who is in an unfortunate situation and he lashes out, and Spider-Man not understanding the situation, well, look, he's a common robber who gets
He
a lot
manslaughtered
of
Uncle Ben.
powers. He manslaughter. It was okay. So, but it wasn't first degree.
No.
It was,
And he felt really bad about it.
That whole plot line where it's
He
like
did feel bad about it.
he's the one who
Manslaughter, second
murdered
degree?
Uncle Ben was the stupidest shit.
They were tying in the themes of the first two movies about fathers and sons, right? And that's why New Goblin was a major part of that movie,
Right.
because that's what the whole thing that doesn't fit is the Venom thing, which was pushed in by Sony to fit their agenda. Raimi has gone on record stating when they asked him after he did the first one, which have you ever thought about doing a Venom thing? He's like, no, I have no interest in Venom. I don't like the character. I don't want to do it. And he was forced to do it in the third one, right? And then he gets dragged.
Jaemeeel, what are your thoughts on Venom?
We can talk about it when we talk about the.
Let's talk about that at the trailer part. Okay, so like anyway, we went into this whole thing about the Tobey Maguire trilogy and why it is or isn't good, but let's just keep moving along. So the whole scene, I thought, between like the fight between Electro and Sandman and Spider-Man was really good. I thought that was well done. But the thing with Sandman being like, "What are you doing? What'd you do to him? I don't trust you." Because at first like they're working together and then they're not, and whatever.
Because he trusts Spider-Man, he doesn't trust Peter Parker. He never met that.
That Peter Parker. He knows Tobey Maguire.
He knows Tobey Maguire, and he like when he first sees him, he works with Spider-Man, and then later on sees him without the mask, and he's like, "I don't know this dude."
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, they get captured. I guess so. Sure. Elsewhere, Norman Osborn attempts to escape from the Green Goblin. So this is where he gets his scene where he's like in like the alleyway, I guess.
Right.
You know?
With a Green Goblin talking to him, right?
Yeah, well, he's talking to himself basically, right? Like, he's going before he breaks off his own mask here and whatever. But Willem Dafoe, great, just as good as he was in the original movie. And
I'd say better. I'd say better.
Even better.
They were all better. Even Toby, like Toby's too sappy.
Youth Pastor Toby.
Everyone was
Pastor
better.
Toby. That was funny. Hey, cool youth pastor guy.
Yeah.
Parker then Aunt May calls him, or does she go to see Aunt May at the
she gets
shelter? Calls him. Yeah, and she says, May calls him. I have one of your guys here.
You better come down here. And then this is kind of the crux of the movie, right? Because it comes down to we have to send these guys back where they came from, but they're going to die because I think that when Electro gets captured and he sees the lizard, there's some dialogue between them, and they talk about Norman Osborn and the fact that some of them are dead or supposed to be dead, and they kind of know each other are dead. In particular, Flint Marko, who knows that Dr. Octopus is supposed to be dead, right?
And Dr. Octopus,
Norman's dead.
And Norman too.
The only person that isn't dead out of that group technically should have been Sandman and Lizard.
Lizard, yeah.
He didn't die, right? Lizard didn't die.
Lizard just went to jail.
No, he got turned back into human, didn't he?
Yeah, he got turned back into a human and he got sent to jail.
Yeah,
but they took them from different time points in their story.
Yeah, and Sandman just left.
Mm-hmm. I'd point out though from this scene forward is when Aunt May starts to play the Uncle Ben role. And it's so beautifully done. It's done better than any of the Uncle Ben stuff from the other movies. They really just create the perfect origin for this. This is a great origin Spider-Man movie.
I have a question for the group, the panel, of this dilemma, because what Spider-Man and Stephen Strange are trying to do here is we got to send them back, and they're not our problem, and we got to try to clean up the mess we created. But Aunt May's point of view is here, this guy is sick. This guy needs help. We need to the idea that you had to cure these villains. That this movie's about redemption. Whose side are you on in this argument between Spider-Man and Stephen Strange? Because they're diametrically opposed, right? In terms of how they think they need to handle this. And that was one of Jane's big feedbacks when we came out of the movie. She was like, I was on Doctor Strange's side about this whole thing. I don't understand where Spider-Man and Aunt May were coming from. And so Davan, you first. Which side of this debate are you on?
Well, what I think the more important question, addressing what your question is, no, it's the same. Whose side I'm on is irrelevant. But what I think it does is, I'm always kind of side with Spider-Man, but this is the Uncle Ben thing. This is him becoming the Spider-Man that he is in the comics. In the comics, Spider-Man always has to go the extra, try to do the impossibly noble and good thing. All the other superheroes, like Captain America, could be like, all right, here's what we can achieve. We can't do everything, so let's do this. Spider-Man is just no, we have to do everything. And this is Aunt May instilling that in him. So he's like
the Michael Burnham of the MCU.
I don't know, man. I don't think I like that.
I definitely noticed that this is a younger Peter than we usually see, and that this movie's kind of setting up for more where comic book Peter starts in college.
What?
Well,
he technically started in high school. He started in high school, but modern Spider-Man that most people recognize and know is college/post-college Peter Parker.
Right. Okay.
This is like 26
more setting up into the Peter Parker people know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to, Eamon? Do you want to answer the question?
I'm definitely on Spider-Man's side. I am someone who firmly believes in second chances, and I believe that in real life too.
You raised a good boy, Dave.
Yeah, I believe there are very few crimes that are unforgivable, and that you should at least be allowed one extra chance. So I'm definitely on Spider-Man's side.
And Jaemeeel?
I understand both characters' point of view. So looking at both characters, Doctor Strange deals with forces of nature, right? Where you're not going to you can persuade Dormammu, but you're not going to change Dormammu. Dormammu is Dormammu, right? Regardless. So he has a perspective of dealing things that are forces of nature that you can only redirect and not necessarily control, right? Whereas Peter is a ground level character that is dealing with individuals that he tries to understand their motivations and has seen changes in personalities. Plus, with this added responsibility that he has taken on, given to him by his aunt/uncle, like I understand why where his point of view is. Now, Doctor Strange has a point in terms of like for the greater good, you like this is a cut and dry situation. But at the same time, Peter caused this situation, so he has a moral responsibility to leave the situation better than where he found it, right? Especially when he can make a change. So I side with Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man is the guy who tries to change his villains. Everyone else tries to defeat their villains. He never stops trying to appeal to their better nature, and that's why he's the best superhero.
To me, this is a dynamic that DC should be playing into between the differences between Batman and the Flash, right? Flash's relationships to his rogue gallery is much different than Batman's is, and what we saw on screen is difference between Batman and Flash.
Well, I think part of the thing about Spider-Man that makes him that way is that most of his rogues gallery are people he knows.
Oftentimes. Yeah. Or scientists he respects. Or
something like that.
Right.
He's got someone who's just like a low-rent criminal, but he can, side with the fact that they've been poor or like, whatever, something.
Right. Like Norman Osborn, Doc Ock, he like, and a few of the others.
Even Electro, technically speaking.
Well, only in that movie, but like generally.
But in general, he's a poor criminal, a low-rent criminal who's poor. Right, who gets a flash of greatness,
Yeah. And the whole thing where they're about to like go back, and this is where Strange is about to like redo the thing, kind of wrap up the magic, and they get the machina, like the box that has that all the spells inside of it, and but this is where like Peter goes like steals the box and runs out, and the whole fight between Stephen Strange and Spider-Man breaks out here, and it's great. I thought it was like they go into the mirror dimension. No. They go the whole part where he gets knocked down into the astral plane, where Stephen Strange like knocks him out of his body, but his physical body is still able to like keep the box away from him. Why? And Doctor Strange says that shouldn't be possible.
Yeah,
Jaemeeel, why do you think that was happening? What's where
we kind of talked about this already, but yeah.
Okay, it's his spider sense. His spider sense unburdened by his being.
Peter Tingle.
Yeah. All right. So as it's just instincts being at play, that's why it automatically moves. All right. Okay. So it's just when Peter is in his own body, then there is the instinct is given to the person, and then the person makes the movement, and he is able to. Right? But once the person is taken out of it, it's just instincts, and that's why it was just able to move.
Yeah, cool. Like, do you guys like all that? Like with Eamon, what do you think of like the thing between Stephen Strange and Spider-Man, their whole fight, and the fact that Spider-Man defeats him with geometry and math?
I definitely think it's really cool, and I like that the movie doesn't pretend that like they're at equal odds. Like Doctor Strange is stronger generally than Spider-Man, but the fact that Spider-Man is able to get the leg up on him is really cool.
And Doctor Strange was obviously pulling his punches. He wasn't necessarily, trying to hurt Peter. He was just trying to.
Honestly, I think Doctor Strange cares about him.
Yeah.
No way.
He says that at one point. He's like,
they're
those
like war
who love
vets
you
together. They were in the Infinity War together.
What is he? Your ward?
They were both blipped.
They were both blipped on Titan. They weren't even on Earth when it happened. And they came back to Earth together. And I like how he steals his sling ring as well. And
that was that
was a dirty move, but yeah. But it's like Dave. It's like you were saying about how Strange manipulates the fundamental forces, but he doesn't necessarily understand those fundamental forces the way Peter does, because as we math is how we explain so many.
Peter Parker's a pretty smart person.
Yeah,
Well, Stephen
He's just like,
Strange
"Oh,
is
this
also
all-"
a pretty smart person.
True, but he
well,
doesn't understand. Is smart in his field.
Yeah,
He doesn't have the
surgery.
broad knowledge of science that a Peter Parker does.
Yeah,
True.
thermodynamics and geometry and such.
Yeah, no, that was clever. I thought like and I think he gets out of the fight. He's like, "Dude, I totally beat Stephen Strange, and I didn't even have to do it." He was just like, it's just great like moments. Tom Holland's so good in this movie. I haven't really talked a lot about that, but really enjoyed that. And he's when he gets back there, like we're gonna get these. What he has to convince like the Sinister Five here to like kind of work with him.
Most of the Sinister Six is here, isn't like most of it.
Well, there's only
different
5 of them.
lineups.
I guess the 6 is Venom, who we see in like
No,
really there.
Craven's coming. Craven's coming down the pipe.
But in this movie, they're the Sinister Five.
There's only 5 of them. Yeah.
There's only 5 of them.
But we have Electro, we have Doc Ock, we have Green Goblin,
the Lizard, and Sandman.
Well, if you want to say someone's the 6th one, it's Mysterio, because he's in the beginning and he's kind of kicks the whole thing off.
A bit, or you could say Venom. I don't even think you can count Venom.
We're
Venom's
not
not even in
Venom.
the Sinister Six, really. He's like
He
in it
was
for a very
technically.
short time. Yeah, very
Yes.
short time.
On one occasion, wasn't he?
And it was the 90s, so
Technically twice.
right? But in those
Oh, yeah.
universes, he's also not Damien back. So
And the second one was Mac.
oh yeah, I wasn't counting Mac.
Yeah. But he was technically.
He was
But
as
like-
Scorpion and everything. So
When they all go to okay, so they're all talking to each other, and he's like, "Well, you can work with me, or you can die." And they're like, even like the Lizard kind of points out, "Well, like, we're not really given a lot of choice here." I like just the reactions a few times where they're like, "Is that a dinosaur with the Lizard?" And you can talk, and you have a British accent too. That's I wasn't expecting that. But,
yeah, he can talk in this movie. He couldn't talk in Amazing Spider-Man 1.
He talked in that.
No, didn't he like
Yeah.
hiss and like
no,
it
he
was
talked.
just like a couple of words, but not like full
Not like,
on
fully
sentences.
intelligent.
Yeah.
Who, a lizard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Warm blood.
he always kept his intelligence.
Yeah. Warm blood.
Isn't
I
it funny
wonder,
how like
yeah.
none of them said spider sense in this though? All the Spider-Mans were just calling it the tingle. He's like,
The
"Did you
tingle.
tingle?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we tingle."
I was wearing my Peter
True
Tingle
on the
shirt
nose.
yesterday.
Oh yeah,
So-
you have a Peter Tingle.
Yeah.
But the whole thing where he takes them to like Happy Hogan's condo back to there, and like the security cam footage, and like it's just kind of funny.
Nice detail I liked was that when Electro went by, the security footage messed up because of the electricity in him.
He phases the camera. I thought it was just like, I don't know, like on one part I was like, this is kind of neat, but I'm also like, it's just guys standing around in rooms talking a lot. But it was good because it gave all of these characters like dialogue development. They each had their own arcs. So like the prison, and even into this, where I guess it's Doc Ock that they want to like kind of cure first and kind of figure out, and him working with like Norman Osborn and everything.
He's the
there.
nice guy. The rest of them kind of suck anyway. Like you're not going to cure them of sucking. Well, no, Kurt Connors is an alright guy too. But,
Yeah, if
He was still
the other three.
he was egotistical, but he wouldn't know that. He wouldn't know the character. Like my understanding of solving Doc Ock first was he is the only other doctor amongst the like that he knows
He would
personally.
know how to do that.
Oh, and Osborn's a doctor. Even
Well, yeah, he's already helping him technically, so it would make more sense to help Doc Ock and then go into solving.
Lizard's a doctor too, isn't he?
And Norman knows him. Like Norman and Ock keep talking about each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're working together, and I'm just trying to remember how it transitions. He starts with Octavius, gets that inhibitor thing done. I like how he's like, I'm myself again. I'm so quiet. Like his cure and like everything else there. And how
Then he
even
flips
like
on them, right?
No, it's
Green Goblin flips there, and he like
Not yet.
Green Goblin flips a few minutes later, right?
I couldn't tell specifically when he flipped.
I thought when he called
he was
when
playing for a while. It was earlier.
my understanding and what I thought was when Octavius insulted him, right? When he was getting the chip, right? I think that's when he turned because the rest of the time he was working on the cure for himself, which didn't work. So I figured that was
Maybe.
the case. and Peter was working with Electro at that time. So it wasn't until that was done or that started, that whole process started, was when, you know, the sense went off.
Right. Because Electro, like he's got a lot of dialogue, a lot of interesting things. He's commenting on the Legos and everything else, but he's like, he's struggling with this idea of, does he want to be depowered? Does he want to be cured? His thirst for power and to be somebody, I guess.
In this new energy, because it all feels different than his universe.
It all feels different in this universe, especially the arc reactor, which he's been sort of near, especially in this scene, because I guess Spider-Man's other suits here, and everything with that, and like, and so when Goblin flips, it's just like the bit of instigation he needs to like sort of, I'm not doing this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to give up my powers.
But that was a great scene, though, when he just feels like the spider sense going off, and he's like, he doesn't know where it's coming from, and he's like looking at each person, and he's like, why are you looking at me?
Oh, it's so good. It was like, I loved the anticipation and sort of like the just the anxiety around it, and then he's like, oh, you got that tingle, good job, you know. And this is where things really start to blow up. So there's the whole fight. He steals the arc reactor, he blasts Octavius is trying to help Spider-Man, and he's like, I liked you better before when you were deranged, I guess.
I like how Aunt May knew well enough to take like the cures with her.
She was
she's just marking this whole stuff. Was she here for all these scenes too?
Yeah. She drove them to the loft.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why she used the van.
Up with Happy.
Right, because there's that whole thing where Happy's calling about like, I saw those guys. Who does he think they are? He likes like,
your android friend.
Your android friend.
Poor Happy. It's like, I can be fun. I can be more fun.
Yeah. You don't think I'm fun enough? And then the whole battle that goes from here, like they were going like down through floors. It was like they were smashing through the different floors, and they eventually get on the ground floor. And this is where May injects him with the antidote at one point. It doesn't work. She gets
just to step back a little bit from that, they did a great job of really showcasing for the first time the strength the Goblin has, right? And like he's just fighting him like fisticuffs, and we always knew that Peter is holding his punches. So when he starts wailing on Green Goblin and he's just laughing at him, right? And then he takes a step back and he starts like laying into it a little bit more. That just raised the stakes of the fight, because we know there's an understanding of how strong Spider-Man is, but to see like a force just kind of just shrug off his advances and just totally wreck him. Like he was throwing him through like walls and everything. At the same time, the dialogue back and forth and manipulation was fantastic.
That's the case in the comics too. The Green Goblin has always been portrayed as stronger and more durable than Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, like seeing that
even on the Marvel cards, they rate their powers.
Well, I've always thought of like the Tobey Maguire as being like the strongest of all these three Spider-Man, because there's that whole scene in Spider-Man 2 where he has to hold up an entire building he's like, this is really heavy. And
that's adrenaline more than anything.
I don't know. I think it's Tom Holland. He held a freighter, like a yacht in half. He pulled it together.
Tom Holland seems to make it look more effortless. He does when he does a big strength thing. He seems to like he could keep going easily, whereas the rest of them are all like.
Well, he's the younger of the group too.
He's the least experienced, but like, it was interesting seeing that fight and seeing how much the Goblin was besting him. You know, because this is Spider-Man, even with like an advanced suit, right? That he's got on here, and it's Goblin is still kind of really getting the drop on him here. He's not used to this. You can tell he's fought Thanos and others, but this was kind of he was a little bit out of his depth in some ways in this fight. And then we get to like the whole the whole thing with the pumpkin bomb and the fact with Aunt May here and her death and everything else. What was your reaction, Jaemeeel, to
you go straight to me? Wow. Okay. I got very emotional during this film. really emotional. It wasn't the fact that she just died. It was the fact that how she died. So first you have the total beatdown with the through the floor, and then talking trash to May, and then having May jump in, and the pumpkin glider basically stab her, right? Because she was pierced on the side, right? Pierces her on the side, and then she kind of, I believe, understanding her situation, feels like she's trying to just dump all this information to him, and she wants to take that time to talk to him about this stuff before she runs out of time, and she didn't want to worry him, but also the shock at the same time. I have conflicting emotions about this scene, but the end result was I thought it was beautifully done. It wasn't too far. I'm very sensitive about death scenes about characters, because there is it's like a tightrope, and if you fall off, it just becomes humorous. And this found the right chord.
Davan?
Well, it's the Uncle Ben story coming to fruition, but better, because she's such a hero in this whole movie, and even in all of them.
I'd argue in the MCU in general.
But
and the difference too, Davan, I think
they correct the mistake the other two movies made, where those other two movies perpetuated people saying the catchphrase wrong. They always said, with great power comes great responsibility, which is such a different sentence than the correct one, which Aunt May says, because Marvel knows what they're doing with their own properties. Which is great power
what is it
also
correctly, then?
come great responsibility.
Wait, what is it? What's the correct one then?
With great power must also come great responsibility.
Yeah, that's the actual
other
line.
one makes it sound like it's involuntary and it just happens. But that's not what the Uncle Ben and Aunt May are trying to say to him. They're saying that
right, which makes much more sense
to accept that responsibility, which is must also come. It's such a different and more powerful phrase, and that's why I kind of write off those previous Spider-Man movies. One of the many reasons I do is like a good portrayal of Spider-Man, because they just get all the important things wrong, or at least a lot of them. And
Davan, I think
Marvel's been getting them all right, so good.
With when the two Uncle Bens have previously died, in Tobey's franchise and in Andrew's franchise, we know Uncle Ben's supposed to die. It's part of the mythology of Spider-Man. It's something everybody knows. And Aunt May,
not to get attached.
Because we had always assumed, I guess when this Tom Holland Spider-Man had come along in 2017, that his Uncle Ben had already died off screen. We don't need to see it again. But it's not. I don't even get the impression that this universe had an Uncle Ben at all.
Well, they mentioned he has the little initials on his.
There was an Uncle Ben.
It's Joe Pesci.
It's Joe Pesci.
Yes,
Joe Pesci.
Yeah, canon.
That would be great if it was Joe Pesci.
That's what you do about lawyers.
Yeah. But
he mentioned
her biological clock is ticking there.
Eamon, what did you think of the whole of Aunt May's speech because he's Spider-Man is really struggling with this is all my fault. I should have just sent them back to their universes. I shouldn't have tried to go here. And she goes, no, you should have.
I like that she confides in him and says, no, you were right. Because I think as human beings, we tend to doubt ourselves when we do the things we think right, but then it goes wrong. We say, no, we were wrong the entire time. But really, it just failed. That's all it is. And that's what Aunt May is kind of trying to convey in this scene. And when she got back up after being stabbed, I genuinely thought that it was a fake out and she wasn't going to die. So seeing her die was a lot more impactful in a way. And here's the thing, too. I actually wonder if Peter had been able to get to our hospital, she would have lived. But because the guards were there and everything, and basically Happy was buying time for him, he just kind of ran.
Well, she didn't. She still was. When he left, you see a tear. Right. You see a tear when she dies. When Peter leaves, she's gone, but she's not gone completely. Right. So
it was really sad. It had me all cut up.
So in a way, I'm right about that. Okay.
Yeah. I was really sad through this. I thought, oh my god, I didn't see it coming.
Me
Not
neither.
here.
No, me either.
And I was, and how devastating it is, and how well Tom Holland plays it. I think
She's a beloved character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I like this scene, the next scene following, where you have the J. Jonah monologue, and Pete's just watching the screen.
It's so good.
And the tears, oh my, like,
yeah,
the tears of the rain is just,
yeah, it's so good.
I'm tearing up now thinking about it.
It's so good.
Very
yeah,
Blade
he
Runner.
just goes
Tears in the rain.
off the grid, and he goes to like just be by himself. And
To this place that the other Spider-Man said like was like the place he goes to relax, which I don't entirely understand, or like to get off his mind. But I don't remember seeing that in the previous movies. That location. That he
You
goes
do.
to.
It's just during the day. He goes there with MJ. It's by the school, but it's on the roof on a specific part, right?
Okay.
So he goes there in the first movie, second movie a lot, and this one you do see at the beginning. So they do reference it. It's just not a landmark that makes it
Like the Chrysler
stand up.
Building or the
or the Empire State Building. Great views. Great views.
yeah, and this is where. So after like Happy gets arrested too, because he like sees Peter.
He gets himself arrested to buy time, basically.
So, I guess I think Spider-Man could have got away anyway. But they even start. Don't they even start like shooting at Spider-Man here?
They shot at
They
him.
actually do shoot him. Yeah, they actually do hit him.
They hit him.
Yeah.
Does it pierce his flesh?
No, he's in a suit. His suit is bulletproof.
Oh, good. Okay, and then and then, yeah, like just like J. Jonah Jameson, who we haven't talked about a lot. J. Jonah Jameson, like the whole J.K. Simmons of it all, and he's just like gaslighting it, the whole thing. He's just like Spider-Man. He's a menace. Look what he's done now.
That's just J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised that he wasn't more in this movie, or he didn't have a bigger
A
role?
little bit. I would have loved to have seen J. Jonah Jameson from the two universes interact. Maguire, Jameson,
or even to have Maguire meet this version of J. Jonah Jameson, or to comment on him.
Yeah,
but that, none of that
put
happens.
a toupee on him.
Yeah. But speaking of which,
I'll talk about that because I have an issue with that technically, but I'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, like so when the whole thing where we go over now to Ned Leeds' house, right? And this is where he's with MJ and the grandmother, and they're like nothing from Peter. They don't know what to do. They're seeing on the news that there's been this attack and at least one person dead. I don't know if they know it's Aunt May or not for sure, but they know that things have gone badly over at the condo. They're like we didn't talk about that, but he had sent her off earlier to kind of guard the machina, the spell box.
The box,
yeah. And so she's got to press it, like press the button, which would send them all back to their universes and would kind of end this whole affair. And I don't know what stops her. I guess it's Ned, right?
With the sling ring.
Not Ned talks her.
Peter asks her to not do it. Wait for him to call, but then also Ned stops her. He's like, "Wait a second." And then I think he mentions like, "I just wish we can get Peter back."
And then he's far from the sling ring. Yeah.
It was funny.
And then they open the sling ring.
And he was like, "Let me find Peter Parker." And then, like as soon as like that opened up, especially when he turns around and you see his that version of the Spider-Man suit, like my whole crowd was like, "Oh my god, it's him!" And it was like there was like this buzz. But as he comes through that portal, and when he takes that mask off, like the whole crowd just erupted.
Roared.
Yeah, it was like this moment of like levity where it's just like, yeah, we are getting it, and we all knew it. We all knew this was happening, but here we are. And it's Andrew Garfield.
My crowd was like, "That's not Toby."
It was a pro Toby crowd.
Apparently,
and it was
a Toby province.
Yeah, I just like even like the whole like the dynamic there where like Zendaya is just like
she's like, I don't
run on the ceiling.
Throw bread.
I like when she takes the box and she's just like, "And I'll press the button too." And it's like, "We believe you, Michelle."
Yeah, she's throwing the bread at him. And, like,
it's like I want to check to see if your sense works. It's like it works, not for bread.
Not for bread.
Prove that you're Spider-Man, and he holds on the roof. And she's like, "Crawl around," and he's like, "Isn't this good enough?" And she's like, no. And then off screen, he's like, you still see him, and she's off screen. And then you see another loaf of bread hit him. That second loaf just got me completely.
Like 3 that hit him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, well, how am I doing it then? The fingertips aren't good enough. How am I doing it? She's like,
and then the mother comes in and goes,
like,
this monologue that she goes through.
Yeah, well, we got a comment from Marcel who was just saying, like, I love the fact that Lola was speaking Tagalog for a good chunk of the time. No subtitles. That's huge for Hollywood.
What's Tagalog?
I thought it was Spanish, but I guess it's Tagalog. It's like
because he's Filipino. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which has some Spanish in it, right?
I don't know what ethnicity Ned's family is, so
Filipino.
Flip Mode Squad. He is Filipino.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a bit of a conflict of interest for Spider-Man to have to get cobwebs in the corner. You know, he's like, those are his people, the spiders. But you know, they're just trying to make a home. But you know, he does it.
So maybe you all can answer this question. Does either Peter from Amazing Spider-Man, I can't remember when he was at the grocery, if the grocery was Filipino, or because it seemed like one of the two knew like what Lola was saying, or like had like a connection with her of some sort, because the way she was kind of like acting and talking to them, it was like one of them understood.
Oh, I didn't.
And Ned was just translating for everyone. Watch the scene again. Go to the movies. Just
I haven't seen it twice like you, so I got to go back. And,
I didn't have the money for 2 watchings.
Oh, I still don't have the money for 2 watchings. It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
And then when Toby shows up, not in his suit, right?
Not in his suit. He just walks in. He's just like, "Hey,"
as what was he?
Hey,
the
I'm a youth pastor.
Yeah, cool youth pastor or whatever he's described.
Have you found Jesus?
Yeah, I just like they didn't DH him really. You know, he's like they whatever age I guess Tobey Maguire is now, 40 something. He looks old enough to be Tom Holland.
I think the implication is that between the Spider-Man movies, they take place accurate to the year that they were made. So it's been 15 years since the original Spider-Man timeline.
Except for the case of the dead people who were pulled out of their timelines before they died. Right before they died.
Yeah. By that.
So this Spider-Man, he's like the senior Spider-Man. You almost like the 3 decades of Spider-Man. The guy in his 40s, the guy in his, I don't know how old Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is supposed to be exactly. Andrew Garfield is my age. He's almost 40. But I guess he's like maybe a 30s Spider-Man, and then you got the even younger version,
and then the 17-year-old Spider-Man.
Yeah, and the fact that they're all Peters, and that they come. Tobey Maguire. It wasn't as big. It was a big moment when he came in, but not maybe as big as Andrew Garfield's moment.
You kind of knew what was coming the second time
you
around.
knew it was coming with him.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Maybe I think Andrew Garfield should have gotten to be Spider-Man 2 because we meet him second, you know, and then
probably.
But he was like everyone's least favorite, which is again them making a nod to all the things we talk about. He's just like, I get it, Peter 3.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, I prefer the Andrew Garfield to the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
I think some people do. I think in like the, you know,
I like all 3 of them honestly.
Yeah,
I'm a Holland guy.
This and them talking and them go, we're all Peter Parkers, and like it was just a real like good energy. And then like they're like, well, they're talking about where they would go to like be sad. You know, mine was on the top of the Empire State Building. I'm a Chrysler Building guy.
Backwards. That's backwards.
And they're like, well,
luckily neither of them were World Trade, because that would have been awkward.
Yeah, it would have been awkward.
Well, no.
And luckily they weren't in the movies.
Came out in 2002, so that doesn't even make sense.
Well,
but even you wouldn't know this, but the original Spider-Man trailer from like way back in 2001, before 9/11 happened, was you saw like this scene where this helicopter was like trapped by Spider-Man in the webs between the 2 towers.
Oh, okay.
They got rid of that though.
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. But it was cool because it looked like a little fly that the Spider-Man had caught, you know, and everything else. And
that whole time was a weird time.
Yeah,
the scene where they go to, I guess where is Peter? He's on the top of a roof somewhere.
It's
Jaemeeel just explain this.
School.
It's a school.
It's a school.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a high school. It's Midtown High.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. somewhere
got you.
near there.
Sorry.
Apparently.
And just like where they they hug and there's a real emotional scene because how sad Peter is, like our MCU Peter 1. That we have to
Who hangs out on a 3-story building? Like the rest of them, are like, we picked the biggest buildings in New York.
Biggest building in New York.
Yeah, I just go on top of the high school.
Yeah,
3 stories. That's all I need. I like when the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire like flip down and they say like, we want to help you, and he's like, don't tell me you know what I'm going through. They're like, sure, we won't, but we do because we had Uncle Ben's. And,
Uncle Ben and Gwen was Andrew Garfield's example.
Yeah, like just a couple comments here from Marcel saying like Toby and Andrew did a great job. Really loved and seen like the generational conversations.
I loved it too.
The self-inflicted affliction and concept responsibility that was like, and I kind of shared what they could relate to each other on. The honoring of the comic book. I agree. Like I thought that
agreed.
like the even like
they tried to distill it down
here, but like at the end when the 3 of them like even hug each other and like my whole audience was like, oh, like
yeah, it was so nice.
It was nice.
Well, I like it. It almost feels like this movie almost has shades of Clone Saga in it too.
You're
Spider-Verse.
Oh,
Or Spider-Verse, yeah.
My heartstrings are being pulled. My
Clone
heartstrings.
Saga?
Yes, actually, yes.
Oh God.
And that could be a different discussion for a different time, but
the story that went 3 years too long.
I'm a Clone Saga apologist.
Fair enough.
As am I. We have that in common. I like
wow.
Saga.
Okay.
I'm eventually going to have a Spider-Man podcast after this X-Men one. We'll have you guys on to talk about.
I'll come on and sing the praises of Ben Reilly. No problem. But
and Jaemeeel can sing the praises of Symbiosis.
Yeah. But like where Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man explains like when Gwen Stacy died, like I stopped pulling my punches, I became violent, I became uncontrolled, and then Tobey Maguire Spider-Man explaining that when the guy who killed my Uncle Ben, or who I thought had killed Uncle Ben, it was actually Flint Marko,
right?
But it was Flint Marko's partner that night from the first movie, and he like basically. Spider-Man doesn't push him out that window. Like Tobey Maguire didn't push him out that window, but he didn't save him either. He basically allows him to die. And he goes, I didn't get what I wanted out of that. I didn't get, I don't want to see that happen to you. So the fact that these two are almost like older brothers kind of coming in to say to this youngest Spider-Man, like we see where you're headed and we want to help you.
They've been where, Tom Holland is.
Right. And they want to help him. They have that, like, who could, even though Tom Holland's like, don't tell me you understand. Come on. Who understands more than yourself?
Yeah.
They know better not to argue.
Peter Starker.
They know better not to push that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spider-Mans are emotional creatures.
Right. They all agree to like work together. And they go back to like this lab. I liked them doing like the science together. I like them doing like the little, like them being like a bit more of a, like, along with Ned and MJ and being like the spider team here that have to kind of figure out how to do it and how we're going to cure them. Right.
Peter Parker using science, using his brain to solve his issues. I'm like, does anyone realize how much that means that we're getting this? This should be in every Spider-Man movie whatsoever.
Exactly. Just like when they
introduce
movies.
Squirrel Girl.
But then like in Batman movies where they lean into the fact that Batman's a detective as well. They did that in The Dark Knight, when they had to kind of figure out what Joker was up to and not enough, but like at least a bit of
a little bit too much.
Maybe too
Let's
much,
figure out this bullet fragment. Like the bullet fragment was a little bit too much and they spent way too much time on.
Anyways, we're not talking about Batman. So
but it's just Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a scientist as well, and just them like, well, if I think it was Andrew Garfield's like, I already cured my lizards. I'll work on that first, and then I'll move on to Electro, and then they're all going to do it. The whole thing with the web shooters, the fact that Tobey
Maguire's come out of his body.
Comes out of his body.
Yes.
Like, I still have Weblock. It's like, it's like a. Personal confidence, emotional crisis thing.
Existential crisis.
Yeah.
Organic Webs was canon for a bit. He did have organic web
In the comic book?
I didn't
in the
know
comic
that.
books.
When he was becoming a 6-armed spider person.
Well, during the whole that, and also again in the other storyline.
Oh, the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was something that I think if memory serves, that James Cameron had when he was originally going to direct the Spider-Man original movie before Sam Raimi eventually took over, because that Spider-Man was in development for a long time, and that was like one of the things that James Cameron brought in. He's like, well, it's not realistic that Spider-Man, this high school kid, would be able to invent web shooters. So why can't we just have Spider-Man be able to shoot webs by himself? And Sam
He didn't
Raimi
know any smart kids.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense because James Cameron didn't understand the character, so that's fine. I've read that script before.
It makes sense. So
I've read that script. That script was not good, and he's now
going to be
saying
Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah, he kept saying that it was going to be the best superhero movie or the best movie he's never made.
I didn't realize that it existed.
Oh, the script? Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't. The script.
Was this pre-Raimi or what?
Oh, it's pre-Raimi.
Oh, yeah. This is in the 90s.
Yeah.
Who was originally going to be
early 90s,
Brad
like
Pitt
92.
Gonna be Spider-Man and
no, Leo.
No, it was going to be Leo
wanted Leo.
DiCaprio.
Yeah, that would have been
Which
interesting.
would have been a bad choice, frankly.
I don't know. I would have been okay with it. Probably more.
You say that until it actually exists.
I never liked the Tobey Maguire. Like, I never liked him as Spider-Man at all. And I don't think I've changed my mind after this. But he's
good in this movie.
Nice to have him back. Huh?
He's good in this movie.
He is good in this. They're all
liked
even
all
better.
Spider-Man,
All
frankly.
the 5 villains, like the 5 rogues, whatever we want to call them, and then the 2 other Spider-Men who come in, they're all improvements on their original versions. Like Willem Dafoe is even like a little bit sharper, a little bit better in this than he was even in his own movie, I think. He's had 20 years to perfect it, or to kind of think about how he might do it a little bit more, like a little differently, a little more nuanced, whatever. How the writers can lean into certain things, and how they can probably do many different takes and then take the best of it. But yeah, like Tobey Maguire is like the senior Spider-Man in this. He's like the experienced guy. He's the guy who's been around. Like, he fits into that. But when I go back to that original movie, when he's like this 30-year-old man running after a school bus, pretending like he's in high school, it still takes me out of it.
Me too.
Anyway,
I never really had
But at least the whole school was that. They did at least populate the entire school with like 30 and 40-year-olds as students. So
I
they
I
tried
never had
to
a
blend
problem
it.
with it concerning Toby, but I always had a problem with it concerning Andrew.
why?
Him too.
I don't know why. Like, logically, I should think that both of them are a problem, but it's only with me. Like, I think part of it is because Emma Stone is there, and Emma Stone is not. I know Emma Stone's not a teenager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas, like with Toby, I didn't know those actors watching those movies.
Okay.
Nobody knew Tobey Maguire before those movies.
Yeah.
Not really. No, he was in barely anything. Kirsten Dunst was the most famous.
Cider House Rules, was that before or after?
Really, not
Cider?
Franco.
That was after.
Not Franco.
Yeah.
Franco, he was not that big yet. He was he was
Freaks and Geeks.
And
Yeah, Freaks
that
and
was
Geeks.
about it.
Yeah, I thought that was super big.
It
was big.
not in
It got
2001.
No.
Like,
Okay.
It became more of a big thing afterwards. It's why it got canceled. It wasn't popular enough.
yeah,
I didn't watch it at the time.
kind of like a cult classic, like something that got like popular after the fact, kind of like Firefly or whatever.
William Dafoe was
When
the
they all
big
got
character.
famous for other things.
Arrested Development.
Yeah, and and that movie made Tobey Maguire a star and made him a lot of them, like James Franco for that matter too. But they were not.
Yeah,
they
he
were
got to
kind
do
of
that horse
unknowns.
movie.
He
did
did Cider House Rules and Seabiscuit.
Cider House Rules and the
Seabiscuit.
Seabiscuit, all that shit. Yeah. So anyway, loved all of them work, and then they go to the Statue of Liberty. The new one. Okay, guys, the Statue of Liberty. The fact that they were erecting this Captain America shield on top of it, I guess they referenced this in Hawkeye this week in the episode. They're because a character shows up. I don't want to spoil Hawkeye, but she's like, well, maybe I should go see the new and improved Statue of Liberty. And you hear it on the radio in this movie earlier. They're referencing it. The fact that why would you change the Statue of Liberty? Why move it around? We see that it's getting this huge Captain America shield put in the place of where the torch is, where like the statue is holding up the shield. I'm not American. So none of us are, but I wouldn't imagine that I wouldn't like this. I wouldn't like if you put a big Captain Canada like shield on top of the Parliament building, or well, I don't know what the equivalent
lighten
would
up,
be for
Dave.
Canadians. I guess I don't know. Like I was like, did you guys?
I think the
like
Statue
this?
of Liberty should have web shooters, quite frankly.
I also just think it's not the same for us, but also, I mean, I'm just gonna say it flat out. America definitely, and I think people in general, but it also kind of feels like specifically America has a thing with tradition.
Yeah. Militant overt patriotism, you could also call it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Manifest destiny.
So I have thought about this, and I guess we have to also understand where the U.S. is and the world post blip.
Yeah.
Because during the blip, Captain America was there, and basically everyone lost. Everyone lost. The population of the world was dramatically reduced, and we see it in the beginning of Endgame, where everyone just goes to you have a lot of people going to the Statue of Liberty. You see all these boats just dock there, right? Because the world is consolidated and, people have come together. At the same time, you have the results of Endgame, where the two figureheads that come out of Endgame and the blip is Iron Man and Captain America save the day, right? And whereas Iron Man is a folk hero to some, right? Captain America more so, I think, worldwide, because he is this war patriot icon,
and he's this inspiration, right?
Yes, who, in the grand scheme of things,
the leader of men.
He doesn't have that much dirt on him. And when I say dirt on him, look at the amount of scandals that Iron Man is a part of. He's part of the military,
That's
machine.
the beginning of the movie of Iron Man, right? Is that he's basically selling terrorist weapons.
Just in general, right? Him, even post that, look what happened with the Mandarin, right? He's a hero, but at the same time, he causes much trouble. He's this rich dude.
He causes way more trouble than he solves.
Captain America is a soldier, and practically just a soldier who played his part in one of the biggest things in the world. Of course, he would be held in a higher regard and exploited more than Iron Man, who most likely has the rights to his name and his persona being presented in the media. That's why we have Rogers the musical.
Rogers, So he seems like he's the most beloved of the Avengers post blip and everything else, especially
because he never really lived a life. His life was lived in 1940 something, right?
That's why it's so nice to see him go back at the end of Endgame, right?
Right.
Yeah,
but he was briefly like a fugitive for 2 years after the events of Civil War.
But he was proven right, though.
He was proven right, but in Homecoming, remember like when that gym teacher who was pro Mysterio in this movie, he was like, I'm pretty sure Captain America is a war hero or war criminal or something. But anyway, here's the inspirational video for the gym class. Yeah, and like so like I don't know, Captain America was at least controversial for a time.
But controversial in the sense that people just disregarded as like, well, he's a war criminal now. Like no one
it's a generation
truly believed it
too. Because he's from this generation where it's just like, oh my God, you've killed somebody, Spider-Man. It's just like Captain America's killed hundreds of people, and like people know that, and because he was in a war, and it like
he was in World War II.
Everything's less shocking coming from him if he happens to kill somebody superheroing. It's just
I think the point is that he killed a hero who was getting respect. Supposedly, Spider-Man, like Damien Beck was his end goal, right? Was to gain the respect of the people by using.
He was a hero in the media, more than anything.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this: if you were in this universe and you were post blip, and would you be like, yeah, let's throw Captain America's shield on the top of the Statue of Liberty?
Why not?
Yes,
maybe. I don't know.
They restored it. They restored it to its original color.
I would rather make something new than update an existing landmark.
Yeah, I understand that actually. You know,
Put a
That's
cap
fine.
shield on the top of Avengers Tower.
Sure,
Mhm.
that's
Sorry,
fine.
They don't own
new
that anymore.
ownership.
Okay,
Yep.
might be the new Baxter building. We'll see. It's or
Or
maybe
Oscorp.
like because we see like in Hawkeye. I
Or
don't think this is a
Fisk
big
Towers.
spoiler. We see that there's a monument built at like Grand Central where it's like this is where the Avengers first assembled in 2012 together and protected New York. Right? I'm like that's a good enough place to put this monument or
I see. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. In New York, like that, that's probably like surrounded by garbage.
yeah,
yeah, probably.
it's New York,
Okay.
man.
Well, from now on, we're always going to know if we're looking at the MCU version of New York City because it's going to have a big shield on the top of the statue. So maybe that's
I don't want to brag, but I was an Avenger. Oh, were you in a band, dude?
What is that, like a band?
Because they don't know what the Avengers are.
Yeah. Like the whole fight that breaks out at the Statue of Liberty.
It was amazing. It was so
Well,
good.
there was first before that, there was like basically where Peter invites the villains, right? Like he calls up J. Jonah Jameson on like the on the webcam. Or he's like, tell them where I am. I'm out here at the Statue of Liberty and tell them to come find me and right? He's like, I really tried to help you.
Right.
And then-
Jameson is like giving basically commentary to it.
Yeah, but he's basically he's casting an invitation to the Five to come find him, right? And there's some great moments here as they're kind of waiting for this to happen, like where Toby and Andrew have that scene where he cracks his back, just like the callback to
My back.
some good, the whole thing with Tobey Maguire's back was injured between after Spider-Man 1 and
he Tobey Maguire almost got replaced by Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
Really?
that would have been a very different version of history.
Because he hurt his back.
Yeah, he hurt his back at the end of Spider-Man 1, and they were going to replace him with Jake Gyllenhaal.
And then
Right?
there was a joke about that in Spider-Man.
Jake
Spider-Man
Gyllenhaal
2.
went on to be Mysterio. Right, and
I think Jake Gyllenhaal also tried to be Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man, and he lost out in that role too.
Well, he was almost
Yeah,
almost got the role over Toby originally too.
Yeah.
like he was he was one of the finalists to be Spider-Man originally. Just the call out here, and then where Andrew Garfield's all kind of down, and where Tobey Maguire is saying, "No, you are amazing, man. You are which is kind of a play on the fact that he was in the Amazing Spider-Man movies,
Right.
And I was just like laughing to myself through all that.
So many.
But it was
they
also
joked on everything. They riffed on everything. It was so
they ripped on
funny.
everything, but it was also emotional. He's like, no, but you should feel better because he's also trying to like kind of pull Andrew out of the dumps a little bit.
Right.
And also the fact that he's also not liked. He's like the least
he's
liked
not
Spider-Man.
liked as much as everyone else.
Peter 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and just bringing this out, and then they arrive, and then like the whole fight breaks out. They're not able. I like how they're not able to work together. The fact that he talks about being in the Avengers, they don't even know what that is. And then they're kind of working together here. I thought it was weird that they had a chance to like stop in the middle of the fight to have a little huddle, but they did.
They did.
And
They worked it out.
It worked out.
One thing I did kind of not had trouble with was watching the three Spider-Man swing around the scene. I couldn't tell which one was which kind of
You have to focus real close on the costumes, that's for sure.
The issue was to me was between Toby and Andrew. Their costumes are too similar. At least Tom Holland had the gold emblem to kind of stand out more.
Right.
They fought their own villains for the most part, though. Even in the group,
Yeah, which
scenes,
is cool.
Except with Sandman.
Except for Tom Holland, who didn't have any to fight.
No,
And
because none of Tom there's no. It would have been interesting that they had brought in like one of like another
Vulture.
or somebody.
Vulture's going to be in the Morbius
Andrew
movie
in
though,
this
crazy.
movie.
And now the Vulture, like Michael Keaton, doesn't know Peter Parker Spider-Man anymore either.
Not anymore.
We can talk about that afterwards too.
Anyways, one thing I like from Andrew with his little banter with Electro, that something that didn't happen in his movie or really any of the movies, is that Spider-Man he taunts people.
Oh,
and it's something that does not get done enough in the Spider-Man movies, I think.
The closest we got taunting was from Tobey Maguire was with Bonesaw, where he's like, "That's a nice costume. Did your husband help you with it? Make it?"
Yeah, but that was like the closest we got.
Yeah.
Which I don't even think they could make that joke anymore.
As a hero, is that he gets to say what Peter Parker doesn't.
Yeah.
I also really love the moment where Andrew Garfield Spider-Man saves Zendaya.
That was the most emotional moment in the whole movie for me.
When she's falling here, and Tom Holland Spider-Man, he can't get there. He's like, I don't know, he's like too far away or something.
He goes
hit with
first
the Goblin
and
Guard
taken over
by Green Goblin.
The Goblin Guard.
And this is the whole thing about the Andrew Garfield version, the one that lost Gwen Stacy, and the fact that he saved, and it's not when he saves her, it's like the end where he's like, "Are you okay?" And just like that, it's almost like it's like a combination of joy and grief at the same time, where he's
it's
like,
great acting,
really, really emotional scene. Like,
but also I feel like it was redemption for him. He felt like, to me, it seems like he felt like he had redeemed himself because he had fixed what he couldn't in the past.
Yeah.
Well, he had fixed this situation from repeating itself into this version of Peter, which made him feel better. Doesn't bring his version of Gwen Stacy back.
I get that, but it makes it easier for him to let his grief over, screwing it up go, as opposed to before where, now he's like, in a way, I see it as a way of him being able to forgive himself for letting Gwen die.
Mm-hmm.
He learned from his mistake.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good point, Eamon, because I think this whole movie is about redemption, right? And and
second chances, and that's what
second chances. Going for that, and for Andrew Garfield, I don't know what Toby's is. I guess it's Toby's when he stops Tom Holland from killing Green Goblin here at the end,
because he let Green Goblin die basically at the end of Spider-Man 1.
Well, he didn't let him die. He jumped out of the way of a glider.
Right.
He I don't think that it was. It's more about how
he also let loose and tried to kill Green Goblin.
It was more about that guy with Uncle Ben that I think that he didn't want that same thing to happen to Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? So that's the two. They're two things. Like that's the where they're both coming from. The two things are both the two issues. They're both tackling separately, I guess. In terms of their,
I enjoyed the Doc Ock and him talk. I thought that was a real good Toby moment where he's just like, "It's good to see you, dear boy." When Doc's a good guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like,
he says, he's like, "You look like you're doing well," and he's like, "I'm trying to do better." Because his Spider-Man was a bit of a mess, But and now he's trying to save.
Yeah, Toby when he was dealing with in Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man was kind of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So and then and also like he hadn't seen Doc Ock in 20 years or something. So it was.
We assume that this is just like a present day version of Toby that it's been a long time since those events happened to him. Because he
alludes to that a couple of times.
Because they asked him like, who is your MJ, or he doesn't even really say he's with Mary Jane, does he? He's kind of vague about it.
I like what happened at the end of Spider-Man 3 with them.
Him and MJ?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I thought they were still together at the end of that.
They were still together.
Yeah, because there's a Gwen Stacy in that, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who is kind of flirting with him for a part of it. But,
right.
That was a weird one. And just and the end fight here between like Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, after they've cured most of them, they've cured Sandman, they've cured Electro. There was that whole moment where like after they cure Electro, he's Jamie Foxx says, I wish like all these different Spider-Men, I wish there was a black Spider-Man, and like my theater like
really say it that way.
He said theoretically there's a black Spider-Man, and I wanted
it's like all these different. Maybe in one universe there's a black Spider-Man,
and I wanted to get into this concerning Spider-Verse because I wonder if that's going to tie into the new Spider-Verse movie.
It'd be interesting.
Well, Miles Morales. There will be a Miles Morales in the
making
MCU.
an allusion to Miles. Well, obviously it is, but
there's going to be a Miles Morales in the MCU. It's just a matter of when they're going to do it.
Right.
I honestly hope never. I honestly hope never.
You're not.
I'm a defender of Miles Morales. He's a good character, man.
Why?
He's a really good character. Why?
No,
because of all the Spider-Man analogs For a guy who loves the Clone Saga, which is filled with horrible Spider-Man characters, Miles is far superior to all of those characters. Kane,
if we're
Ben
Kane.
Riley,
Oh
Ben
no,
they're
No
all
way.
bad.
If we're comparing Spider Side to Miles Morales, sure, Miles Morales, okay, fine, right? But no,
Miles Morales is a good character. He's
I think
different than
Miles
Spider-Man,
got
but similar, or
redemption in
Peter Parker,
Spider-Verse,
but
where he was
similar.
made into an actual character.
I'm good with the Miles Morales character. Like, Peter Parker, that they can coexist, or they can be, or Miles Morales can be the successor to Peter Parker.
Whatever.
he
right?
can he can coexist in Sony. That's fine. Like they can keep doing the Sony movies. They're doing a great job. I just want my Peter Parker in MCU as Spider-Man.
For as long as possible. I
It'll
would like.
always be.
It almost seems like Miles Morales would almost be suited to be like a sidekick to Peter Parker, almost like an apprentice, right?
Which he does sometimes in the comics now.
He is sometimes in the comics. Sometimes he's like originally in the Ultimate universe, Miles Morales becomes Spider-Man after Peter Parker of that universe dies, right?
Not canon.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's canon to that universe.
Canon to
Ultimate
his
universe.
character.
Yeah.
That character still remembers.
but
But
Ultimate
you're not
Universe is a what if.
What don't you like about the Miles Morales character?
Do we want to talk about this or we talk about the movie?
Okay, let's
Let's talk about the movie.
All
we'll
right,
talk about it on my
all right.
Spider-Man podcast. That's coming.
Okay, we're gonna talk
probably
about that
next year.
offline and come back to that. But then the whole end scene here with like the fight with Holland and Willem Dafoe, and like the kind of that and this fight around the shield and everything else that they have, and where I thought like. I understand his rage towards Green Goblin and everything else, but it's good that Tobey Maguire stops him. But the fact that he was even going to make the strike against Green Goblin here, he was even going to do it. Isn't that kind like he kind of made a choice, didn't he?
That's actually pure canon. There's only certain people that have enraged Peter to the point where he was willing to kill, and Green
Basically
Goblin.
just Norman.
Yeah.
Right,
And-
in the comic books because of Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy and multiple
He was
other
tormenting
things
everyone.
The
for
anger.
years.
Yeah.
No, I just think that he got overtaken by anger in the moment, especially probably.
He's young too, right? He's
Yeah.
very young.
How many times has Batman had a reason to kill Joker?
Every time.
They're different.
Yeah, all the
they're not
time.
the
Oh my
same
God.
character. They're not the
True.
same
Don't make
character.
me get started on Batman.
True. No, Eamon, you're right. You're right, Eamon.
Spider-Man never saw, to my knowledge anyways, he never sees his parents die. He never sees his parents get killed.
They died in a car crash.
They died when he was like
Just-
3 years old or
That's
something.
been
right?
retconned, but
Technically, yes, he has seen
Okay.
it. And
the difference is that it's
life theft.
an
Part one to
accident
part three.
as compared to Batman, which was just straight up murder. So
No.
they have,
Okay. Quick sidetrack. Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 386. Spider-Man parents return, and there's a whole thing, and they end up being clones, more or less, but not clones as you think as Scarlet Spider or anything like that.
Right.
But what ends up happening is they eventually get
not cool
killed.
90s clothes.
They get killed eventually, so he does see them get killed, and one of the storylines is he's tracking down the person who was responsible for that hurt, which at that point was Chameleon, and then later on, way down the line, we find out that it was technically Norman as well. Yeah.
The other thing you need to understand is that they're just not the same person. They interpret it in different ways. Spider-Man interpreted it as rage towards the person who killed them, and Batman interpreted it as, a moral that he should never kill people. They just took it in different ways.
Well, Spider-Man doesn't kill people either, but in this one moment,
Not on purpose.
He usually doesn't kill people.
Not on
I'm
purpose.
sure Batman's had like 10,000 of those moments in comic canon.
Did you think that they were going to kill Tobey Maguire? Because after Tobey stops him,
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
And then Norman stabs him, right?
He makes a
I thought
joke.
he was
though.
gonna die.
He makes a joke. He's like, "Oh, I've been stabbed a ton of times."
Yeah, he's like, I know what it's. Oh, and later when they're like doing their goodbye hug and everything, and Andrew Garfield's just like, "You're in a lot of pain, aren't you?" He's just like,
You're in
"Oh
so
my
much
God,
pain,
yeah."
are you?
Yeah.
Right. And then the whole wrap up here, where where I love how like Andrew throws him like the can and he cures him and he turns him back into good Norman Osborn. And the redemption's complete. This is where Doctor Strange shows up, and I guess he showed up a couple minutes earlier, where he was like, "I've been over the Grand Canyon for 12 hours, and I'm I'm back here." And he kind of sees that like the Peter's plan. I think Ned says to him, he's like, "Peter's plan's kind of working, and they're kind of helping these people." And
and he's there was specific attention brought to. Doctor Strange was like, "You did good, kid."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now we have to,
and that's out of the comics too.
You are, because you see in that whole part where like, the multiverse starts breaking, and you see the sky is like turning purple and it's cracking everywhere,
and you start seeing the characters.
Yeah,
you can see.
Yeah, you see the different characters.
I saw the Rhino silhouette, but the comic, like the cartoon version of the Rhino.
Oh yeah, you see Kraven, you see was it Black Cat? You see a whole ton of different characters.
Well, theoretically, they're just different multiverses.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he was like, anybody who knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man is about to come through. That's kind of what.
And then he says, but in an infinite amount of universes, that's
right.
An infinite amount of people that are going to end up coming here. He's like, you understand, we can't let that happen.
Yeah. Right. That would be like the opposite of the blip. That would be like adding a lot more people to Earth very quickly.
Thanos would be just terrified of it. You're just like, there's too many people.
Yeah. And just like this is kind of the arc of Peter in this movie of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, where he's like the true sacrifice is being the true selfless hero. Being the ability, because he's like, everyone has to forget who I am, even MJ, even Ned, even like
everyone who
MJ's
loves
son.
you.
Everyone who loves you, anyone who
and then he goes, "We won't remember you," including himself and the people that love him
so much. Like I said, I love Doctor Strange's dynamic with Peter in this movie. They go through such an arc in it.
Here's my question, just a minor thing, but would Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire fall into this category too? Would they forget him in their universe?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so, because he is Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and it's only the people in this universe that will forget, not necessarily people externally will forget.
Right, because when they go back, okay, like for instance, like Norman Osborn goes back now cured of his Green Goblin thing, and he's going to be dropped into his universe right before he would have died, right? So now he's redeemed. He's now good. Doesn't that would change that timeline, right? Same thing with Doc Ock, for that matter, and the Lizard, or whoever else. I guess Electro. He was the other one who died in his movie, right?
So technically, the only people that we know would have untimely deaths are Doc Ock and Norman Osborn, because Norman Osborn, the die has already been cast, and let's say the glider's coming towards him. If he gets recognition, he's not going to be able to stop himself from dying.
Right.
Doc Ock, when he had Peter in his hands and Peter revealed his identity, right? We assume that is the changing point where he was taken out. Right. After that period, he was aware of himself. He was himself again, and that's where the sacrifice came in. So he would have still sacrificed himself. Sandman died supposedly sometime afterwards. So we don't know that situation because he never died on screen in Spider-Man 3, right? Electro
is weird.
He would just fall into his death.
Yeah.
And
what happened to Spider-Man, to Amazing Spider-Man Green Goblin? Like, did he die or something? Did Peter kill him? I can't remember.
I thought we agreed we were going to bring him up again.
Like that Norman Osborn is.
I meant
Chris Cooper.
No, I meant Dane DeHaan.
Yeah.
What happened to him? Did Peter murder him or something?
I can't remember him.
Yeah, they're like, no one liked that. Everyone was very bothered by that version of the Green Goblin. We will not. We don't need to bring that over. Even like
Dane DeHaan was not a good pick for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was.
Nor was the design team.
Right, but the whole goodbyes. I thought it was a real emotional goodbye with Zendaya and with Ned. Just like, he's like, you're not gonna remember
I
anything.
love that because Peter and MJ get cock blocks the entire movie. So to finally have them have the kiss before they leave, it's really nice.
Right.
nice.
Yeah. It was like I said earlier, Zendaya is great in this movie. She more so than in the previous 2 installments, even though she was good in those. She was even better here. I thought like her connect and their chemistry is definite. I think she's a little bit more rounded of an actor now than she's part of Dune and she's part of all this other stuff.
The character has more depth now too, where before she was just like, I'm an edgy girl, so
I'm
I
an
like
edgy, sarcastic
murder things and dark points in history.
Right.
Pretty cliche.
Yeah. But so she's really good here. I like a more well-rounded character, and just like the whole sacrifice of it. The scene in the donut shop I thought was really emotional. I think like the growth of Peter Parker to say like, you know what, like I could put you in danger. I could put you both are doing fine without me in your life. I can leave you guys to kind of just be normal people, and I'm going to kind of go do my own thing and be alone. And he gets that apartment and he makes his own suit.
Right.
I was like, rent is due, and I'm like, yes,
rent is due.
Rent is not due until you fix this door. Is that the line?
yeah. And then I wonder if his landlord has a daughter that makes cookies and cake.
Yeah, just like that's one of the funniest scenes in Spider-Man 3 where he's eating the cookie. Oh, so good. I love these cookies. it's so good in that movie. Yeah. As much as I don't like Spider-Man 3, I'll always put that on and laugh. Rent. Rent. Yeah, just like the great. I don't know. Just the ending was really exciting. Great. I guess
he's making his own costume and making the maintenance to it because
he has to get his
GED isn't there.
He has to
GED
get his
because he never finished high school.
Colors.
He doesn't. He doesn't even have an identity, right? He doesn't even have like a social security number.
No, he does. He does.
People just don't know who he is.
Everyone's forgotten Peter Parker. Everybody.
That he's Spider.
That he's Spider-Man, but Peter Parker still exists.
No, everyone's forgotten he exists.
Yeah, his friends don't even know he exists. That's a good point.
They don't even know who he is.
That's a good point, I guess.
What's the relationship though?
Yeah,
he's a ghost. He's like this guy.
He's a ghost.
He's this guy nobody's ever met before.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's just a stranger.
They rebooted the character essentially.
Even Happy doesn't know who he is. People know who Spider-Man is, and people.
But Happy wouldn't know him without the context of Spider-Man.
No. Well,
yeah. This is what I'm saying about
MJ and Ned didn't know him. He walks into the coffee shop and they're like, "Who are you?"
I think something will happen with like gaps in memory.
Because he doesn't come in. They go, "Oh, you're that guy we went to high school with." Like they there's nothing, right?
But keep going.
Well, it's interesting that you're seeing it that way. But the way I was interpreting it was that he's just like nobody has ever heard of him. I guess like. And because J. Jonah Jameson was saying like Peter Parker's Spider-Man on TV for months, and now I get that you can cast a magic spell to make people forget that, but like all those recordings don't exist anymore. All the footage pictures don't exist anymore.
I'm pretty sure they were altered by this spell.
So, but the magic of it is that like what he agreed was like nobody has ever heard of Peter Parker before now.
Yeah, that's how he
remembers
says it.
anything
That's how
about
Strange says it.
Right.
Yeah.
So if he has a social security number, right?
Strange is just like no one will know who Peter Parker is.
He's got to like rebuild his whole identity, his whole life.
Yep.
But I would figure that in my thought process for the situation is all the ties between Peter Parker and Spider-Man are gone. Right, and they have to change it. So Ned, who's spent so much time of his life with Peter Parker, like he became Spider-Man when he was he was a freshman.
Yeah,
practically. So
sophomore.
Was it sophomore? So he is a person that
sophomore. They're doing the prequel freshman year cartoon.
Right. So your first year of high school, you were close with someone, and then you're no longer close. Right, you have a ton of stuff happen, plus technically a blip, right? So do you remember every single person that you knew in high school?
Yeah, but
someone, but like you might walk past someone and not really pay attention. He wasn't looking.
But if they were on the science team together,
yeah, exactly.
We don't know if they were the science team. Like once again, the ties that bind them are separated. now. So
yes, but
he
the
might
science
not.
team had nothing to do with him being Spider-Man. He was on it before.
He was doing
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man stuff all during that time, and he knew he was Spider-Man. So,
What you're missing here, Jaemeeel, if you don't
Ooh.
mind me, is
hit me with it.
that's what Peter wanted.
Yeah.
Okay. But when he goes to Strange makes it very clear that this spell he's going to use already exists. It's not like he's tailoring a new spell to Spider-Man's desires. He's like, there's this spell that can make everybody forget you.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works. Like, they made everyone forget that party in Camartage. And it's just like, that's the spell he has. He's like, I have this spell. We can make it work.
Fair enough.
You know?
Fair enough.
And then
You talked me down from the ledge. You talked me down.
He tries
from
to
the ledge.
rewrite it, but that's when he breaks the spell.
You know what?
It should also technically erase Tom Holland's memory of who he
the
is.
beginning of
give
the
him
movie.
amnesia.
It makes me think. I also get the impression that Doctor Strange just kind of wanted to do this spell. He found an excuse in Peter.
That's the same thing I said earlier on.
But he just wanted an excuse.
He's agreeing.
Yeah,
with
he
you
wanted to do that
in a
spell.
delayed fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Again.
like just like the whole thing where I loved when he made the suit. We don't even get to see the whole thing really. Like we only get to see like glimpses of it. That we don't. I really want to see the mask in particular, and see what he does with like the eyes. But just like
costume,
like the whole thing where he's diving down through like Rockefeller Center and all that, and the Christmas tree.
What do you guys think of the new costume?
Well,
one at the end of the
I'm
movie?
excited for it.
I really
at the
like
end
the
of
way
the
the
movie?
blue was like really shiny
Yeah.
on it.
It's the traditional colors.
Yeah.
He's finally wearing the
it's more
traditional
comic
colors.
accurate.
And not
Where they
not
don't
with
have to
those
try to
weird
be
like
edgy and
lines all over
cool,
the
they're just
costume,
like-
like what Maguire and Garfield had on their costumes, where they have like all these weird lines, like this grid pattern on it.
Right. It's more
Yeah,
textured,
it's all
more like
protruded. Yeah.
yeah. No, this is a little bit more more of a leotard, as what's his name would say, Dennis Leary would say. You lost to a guy in a leotard. And then and that's the end of the movie. Like, so great ending. I was really excited. And then we get the let's talk about the two post credits. Mid credits. The mid credit scenes.
Jameel's
first of all,
favorite
okay,
mid-credit sequence.
I have seen
It was
Venom.
funny. I thought it was
I haven't
funny.
seen. I didn't even know this was Tom Hardy. I was like, who is this?
Oh, really?
I was not picking up that this was Tom Hardy. I hadn't seen the more recent. I haven't seen the Carnage movie, but I've seen the Venom movie.
I didn't see the second one either.
And I was like, who is this guy? Who are these guys? This guy wearing a Mexico hat, and then I hear this other voice, and eventually I figure out this is Venom, but it's or Eddie Brock. You know, and he's the guy. The bartender is explaining the blip to him and explaining
It's Rios. It's football is life.
Aliens don't look for rocks; they eat brains.
It's from Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
The bartender's from Ted Lasso.
Okay, like the whole thing here, where like, why was he even in this universe? Why was Eddie Brock here?
To
Because
spoil
at the
Venom
end of
2.
his last movie, yeah.
Because he didn't know about. He
gets warped over at the end of the movie. He gets warped into the MCU.
So it doesn't explain why he is, because unless it doesn't make any sense, because Venom has no knowledge of Peter Parker being Spider-Man. So unless the symbiote also knows it somehow, or it's like saying in the
post-credit scene.
Let's be honest.
Second Venom movie.
Let's be honest.
He never
for a
learns that
second.
Peter. Oh,
This is an excuse to get the symbiote.
In that post-credit scene. I didn't see the movie, but I saw the post-credit scene.
Okay.
no, the
Spider-Man
post-credit
being
scene, he's
Peter
already
Parker
transported,
comes
and
up on
that's why he
screen.
sees it. No,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So
go ahead.
It breaks its own rules, basically. And as Eamon said, they just used it as a means to an end.
Yeah. To get
What I'm
The
reading here
symbiote
is
into the
that
universe.
in the Carnage movie, they talk about how the symbiotes have this like sort of collective conscious mind that stretches across the multiverse, and that Eddie Brock, like the Topher Grace Eddie Brock, and that symbiote would be familiar with Spider-Man, and therefore that symbiote, like the Tom Hardy Venom symbiote, would also have that knowledge.
That is a stretch.
That's
A little stretch Armstrong there, but I'll go with it.
That's how the symbiote would know what a Spider-Man
Peter Parker
is.
doesn't even exist in that universe, to my knowledge.
No, they're
but-
talking about in the Tobey Maguire
in the
No,
universe.
and I'm referring to the Tom Hardy one.
I know, but they're saying that because that symbiote is
Which
Just Topher
is-
Grace.
zero sense.
It does. It's oh my god.
So, but
I gotta
Tom-
duck out here early,
in
fellas.
the-
We
in
were
the
almost
Tom
done
Hardy
here.
Venom universe.
Oh yeah, we're almost done, guys.
Tobey
Hey-
Maguire does not exist.
Are we rating this thing?
Or sorry, that-
yeah. Sorry, I know we're coming up on
Wait.
2.5 hours here, guys. Sorry.
It's all good. I'm gonna run, but my rating is a 10. If you're rating it,
You're giving it 10? Okay, let's throw that up. You get out of here, Davan.
all right.
Thanks
Sorry for jumping out early.
No problem. We'll see you later. Thanks.
All right. Later,
okay,
man.
guys. Let's bring this in just quickly, and we'll get in the ratings and see what else we can break down. So share the screen. There we go. Okay. All right. So we're rating Spider-Man No Way Home. Davan just said he's giving this a 10.
He gave Loki season 1 a 10.
He gave Loki what?
Season 1 a 10.
He
Oh,
did as well. Yeah. Okay. I'll go first. I'll easily give this over 9. I liked it like 9.5. I'm going 9.5. That's pretty high. Okay, Jaemeeel.
I love this movie a lot. I do. But I'll give it a 9.8. 9.7.
10. Just straight up.
Eamon's giving it 10 out of 10.
This is
Okay,
one of
good.
my this is one of my favorite MCU movies in a while.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Spider-Man movie.
This is also my favorite Spider-Man movie. I will come back to this as pretty much as soon as I can.
I'm pretty sure people are going to be coming back to this movie 50 years from now.
Yeah, I'll like even like the other Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I haven't been like super eager to get back to them, like Homecoming, and not that I didn't like them, but this was like really good. This was like, I often want to go back to Infinity War, or Endgame. I think that this is on that kind of scale.
Yeah.
And then you guys, as you can see there, we're gonna be talking about Hawkeye as soon as Jeff can watch it, pretty much. It's Hawkeye season 1, which is wrapping up next week. So that will be our next MCU podcast and rating. Just taking that down. Okay, and guys, the other thing we haven't talked about is the second post-credit scene, which is
not post-credit scene. It's a whole ass trailer.
It's
a trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Like it was kind of a
which, by the way, is being directed by Sam Raimi.
Yes, they got Sam
Yeah,
Raimi
so I thought that
involved.
was kind of interesting.
Yeah, Jaemeeel, what did you think of that whole trailer? I guess did it get you excited?
It gave me enough for me to be excited. But at this point, I don't really need to see anything anymore of it until the movie comes out. I don't want to see another trailer. I'll probably avoid the trailers going forward outside of this one.
I am really hyped for this. I am really interested about Wanda really fits together, I think, with Doctor Strange, and I always loved Doctor Strange because it's just got this amazing visual aspect to it. Anything he's in. And
Have you seen WandaVision yet, Eamon?
I've not finished it, but I have watched part of it, and I kind of understand what happens to her after that because she becomes the Scarlet Witch. I know that.
Yeah,
So-
well, I would recommend that. It was really good. That was we gave that an 8.8 out of 10, and when we all rated that back whenever. And so,
What did you give it?
Bring it back up. I would love to hear your reactions to some of these ratings that you see here.
Yeah, okay. Let's look at WandaVision. 9.5, huh?
yeah,
For WandaVision? Like, I like WandaVision, but I'd probably give it closer to like an 8.5.
you haven't finished it. I can't accept your rating.
When you
I
finish
get
it,
that.
when you finish it, you give it an 8.0.
Yeah.
I think we're more in alignment in terms of that one. I think you'll love the series, but you'll see.
Yeah,
But I just think it's really interesting too because it just looks like it's gonna be a fun time. It looks like we're gonna get just a bunch of more of the sorcerer type characters. And
Eamon, did you finish What If?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I only watched the zombies episode, but I was about to bring that up because I know that ties in to evil Doctor Strange, and I was like,
Or
that ties
Strange
into What If.
Supreme. Strange
Yeah.
Supreme.
yeah. He's Doctor Strange Supreme, right? That's what they call him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was
so
like, yeah, that's good. I'm pretty sure that's gonna tie into What If.
the Guardians of the Multiverse. That's where he.
They're not going to appear in that one.
No,
in this.
but yeah, like when you see like that evil Doctor Strange there at the end of that trailer, like Jane was like, "Oh, that got me excited." Like she loves Benedict Cumberbatch, she loves Sherlock, so it's like
She gets double dose.
Double dose. You get more, even more. Some people are saying that maybe that's not Doctor Strange Supreme. Maybe that's Mephisto. There's a whole bunch of like the fan community that is desperate for Mephisto to show up in something.
Why?
WandaVision.
Yeah.
Because of WandaVision. You got Sodom and Gomorrah, which was awesome in the trailer. So I was excited to see that actually happen and see him fight that. America
Am I
Chavez.
a bit of a Doctor Who vibe from this trailer in parts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with a budget.
Loki really reminds me
Yeah.
of Doctor Who.
But with a budget. We get what's his name back again? Shuite Elijah 4 back.
Is Baron Mordo?
Yeah, Mordo back. I was hoping that we would see Mordo before that, but it's good to see him back. There's just a lot of elements, and I just feel like I've been missing Doctor Strange as Doctor Strange so much because he's just been wrapped up in other people's business.
Yeah.
So it's kind of to see him come back to his
It's the first
his
Doctor
issues.
Strange movie. How long ago was the first Doctor Strange movie? It's got to be before 2018. Right?
I'll tell you in a second. Love this dead air.
2016 it was, right? So so it's 6 years between these movies. The first
Yep.
Doctor Strange and now this sequel is six years? Has it been 6 years?
What year was it?
2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that blows me away.
Well, look how long it is from Guardians 2 to Guardians 3, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some time there. I get like it's just
I liked Guardians 2, but I don't know if I like it more than Guardians 1. I don't really know.
But it doesn't feel like that because we've had Avengers and now we've had Doctor Strange. He's in this. He wasn't in this as much as many people thought he was going to be in this movie. He's really kind of just there when he needs to be there, and
because it was a Spider-Man movie.
It's a Spider-Man movie.
It was a change in pace where it was like, people were worried that this movie was going to be Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, just like in the previous movies. It's been like a lot of Iron Man hanging over Spider-Man, but this felt like it was all about Peter and Spider-Man and his world and his life,
and he was making his own decisions for what felt like the first time.
It was great. Like, this was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I think that they got it really well. They did the damn thing. They brought these three Spider-Men together. It felt great. It brought in these five villains, bringing them all back in. It was I think such a great way to. I think like there's people who are huge fans of all of those franchises, like the original Spider-Man, right? And this was a way of saying like they're all like much like the Into the Spider-Verse did, saying like there's not just one Spider-Man. There's so many versions of Spider-Man, and like it's but there's kind of like the classic version if you want, but it's great, and I thought that this furthered that. Spider-Man's one of the most popular characters in the world, so it's to have that different versioning and whatever is great. Any final thoughts, guys?
Honestly, this is a pretty amazing movie. I mean, I don't know if I can call it the best movie I've seen recently because I saw My Neighbor Totoro for the first time recently. But
dude, yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, but goddamn, man, it was just amazing, and I'm gonna remember this movie for at least a long, long time.
For me, as I kind of mentioned at the forefront, like I try to keep myself very level-headed when it comes to movies that I feel emotionally connected to, and for this movie in particular, it does a lot of things to kind of alleviate a lot of my fears about Spider-Man in general in the MCU and being portrayed, specifically Peter. Peter is a character who struggles and has to overcome and does not have all the gadgets of Iron Man and the support system that other people have. He is one that is on his own, but finds a way to overcome all of his difficulties due to his passion, wits, and his powers, and to get the character return to a status quo which is more in line with the actual character itself, does fill me with joy that I didn't think I was going to be getting anytime soon from these movies. I love this movie. This right now is my favorite movie of this year altogether. I still have more movies to see, but I don't think another movie will impact me emotionally as this one has. But once again, I have to keep myself in check in general.
I just loved all the emotional moments too. Like they were just able to have a superhero movie where you can feel things.
Yes. Stakes that weren't like the world is ending.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was great. I thought acting was superb. In particular, I think Andrew Garfield, I think, is the one that stands out for me, maybe more than anybody, because I just saw him in that Tick Tick Boom on Netflix, where he played Jonathan Larson, which he's excellent in, and then he was in this, and it was just a couple days later I'm watching it, and I'm like, wow, he's a good actor, man. He really doesn't get enough.
He just got miscast, probably.
Well, I think it was just bad writing. I think everyone with that first Amazing Spider-Man movie, they were like, okay, all right, new Spider-Man, sure. And then the second movie was such a mess. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't because he was a bad Spider-Man. It was just just a bad movie, you know. So, and then they aborted because I think Sony knew they didn't know how to do it without sort of Marvel helping them, and that the fans were going to have this problem.
Which is why they probably went.
With Spider-Man being separate from the Avengers. They don't want Spider-Man going, what, the Avengers? What's that? I think most Marvel fans would want to see Spider-Man in the Avengers given the choice, right? When those kinds of things are happening, because it's Spider-Man. He's the most popular character in all of Marvel. And so I think it's like having a Justice League without Batman or whatever. It's just, why would
Justice League International?
Yeah, or West Coast.
Yeah.
Anyways, gentlemen, I have to go get Christmas presents, so I'll be leaving you.
No, it's okay. We're all leaving, Eamon. So thanks,
don't
everybody.
Forget to get mine. Don't forget to check out Eamon's podcast. Let's talk about fighting games.
Check out Eamon's. Eamon, did you know that you're going to be on Trivial Debates this month?
Yes, I did, because we talked about this.
Yeah, you're going to be going against Davan Skelhorn, who you were on this podcast with for 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
And Adam.
With Max Duda hosting. So check that out on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas. It'll be Christmas themed, though, still. Yeah. And then also tomorrow night, we're going to be doing our on Live Long and Podcast, our Star Trek theme channel. We're going to be doing Star Trek Radio Theater at 9 p.m. I'm going to be playing Captain Picard, and Jaemeel's going to be playing Beverly Crusher. And a lot of our friends playing different characters. Star Trek First Contact in kind of a radio audio play. Check that out. Check out everything else we do on Live Long and Podcast too. Monday nights, Star Trek Enterprise rewatch podcast. Tuesday nights, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Thursdays, new shows often. Right now, Star Trek Discovery in their 4th season. We've also been covering Star Trek Prodigy, and Star Trek Lower Decks had their 2nd season this year. Check out all of those. We'll be looking to new shows in 2022. And over on Super Mater Brothers Podcasting, we cover all kinds of things, including reality. We just wrapped season 41 of Survivor not long ago. We talked about the Beatles Get Back documentary series, and did with the Shields brothers, Jeff Mater and I, plus different things, Big Brother and Survivor, and then the Serpent. Anyway, so those are all our different channels. Check those out. Check out Locutors of Trek, Davin's podcasts, and his X-Men podcast.
X-rated.
Great X-rated. Check out all those things. I was just on it. Anyway, so until then, we will say goodbye, Spider friends, and we will see you next time. Have a good one, and
go Web.
See you.
Give the little piece.
Fly. Go Web, go.